Chapter 1266. Then, Yunjian reached out to ruffle Gu Nianji's raven hair. She smiled and took 2 steps forward. Then, she paused and turned to look at Qinyu. "Both of you, come with us." Qinyu nodded and followed Yunjian with the rope that bound Gu Nianji's hands. Gu Nianji pouted but eventually followed Yunjian with Qinyu. Halfway through, Qinyu paused to ruffle Gu Nianji's head like Yunjian and lowered her head to tease her softly by her ear. "Silly Nian Nian." Then, Qinyu suppressed her laughter and followed Yunjian. Gu Nianji was speechless. Did she want to die? Why were both of them bullying her? The group of students standing behind him were all dumbfounded. What was going on? Why were Gu Nianji and Yunjian speaking in such a profound manner? Why did it feel like the 2 of them were deliberately putting on a show for their classmates to get everyone's attention? Some of the students felt disgusted. They thought that Yunjian was doing this on purpose to get everyone's attention. However, no one exposed her or showed their emotions on their faces. Yunjian's class reunion was also considered a graduation ceremony. Not only were the students from the same class able to attend, but students from other classes and even those who were not from Longmen High School could attend as well. Therefore, it did not matter if Qinyu and Gu Nianji were there as well. Qinyu brought Gu Nianji out for a walk today, but she knew that Yunjian's class was having a reunion, so she brought Gu Nianji along to join in the fun. Let's go, let's go. We have to hurry. It's best to get to the racecourse before 12:50 p.m. because we have to pick our favorite horses when we get there later. There'll be a horse race in the afternoon too. Lin Yaqian walked at the front, like a tour guide, leading everyone forward. One had to admit that Lin Yaqian's arrangement was very appropriate. Especially when they were in school, Lin Yaqian, as the study committee member, had displayed extraordinary organizational skills. Therefore, everyone was more than happy to listen to Lin Yaqian's arrangement. Soon, Yunjian and the others arrived at the racecourse. When they arrived at the stud farm, the first thing they saw was the old man who raised the horses. The old man's surname was Zhang. He was already in his 50s or 60s. He had been raising horses for nearly 30 to 40 years. It could be said that he had been focusing on raising horses since he was 16 or 17 years old. He knew horses very well. Right now, Uncle Zhang was helping to manage the entire horse farm. Lin Ziheng obviously knew Uncle Zhang, so Lin Ziheng said a few words to Uncle Zhang in a very smug manner. Then, Uncle Zhang led everyone to choose a horse. "Xiao Jian, what horse do you want to pick?" Chen Sini was excited as she tugged at Yunjian and asked Yunjian. "This type of horse can't fly, so I'm not riding it." Gu Nianji glared at the people who were choosing horses in disdain. All the horses in the Yulong continent could fly. She didn't want this kind of horse. Yunjian curled her lips slightly. "I think this horse isn't bad. It's sturdy and strong. It'll definitely run the fastest. I'll choose it." Zhang Xiaofeng was already in front of a horse. He untied the black horse's leash and said, "Let's go." Pfft. A chuckle from a boy suddenly rang out. The guy who suddenly laughed was not Yunjian's classmate. He was probably a friend or relative who had come with one of his classmates. After he was done laughing, he started mocking Zhang Xiaofeng. Chapter 1267. The man spoke in an absolute tone, and his words were full of arrogance. The boy was about 17 or 18 years old. He looked like a high school student, and he should be a relative or friend of one of Yunjian's classmates. After the boy finished speaking, someone immediately said, "Wow, you're Kai Lin's cousin, Kai Yi, right?" When the boy, Kai Yi, heard that someone actually knew him, he nodded very proudly and said, "Yes. Hey, so you're the cousin who's very good at horse racing that our classmate Kai Lin mentioned. I also heard that you once participated in that provincial horse racing competition and even won the second prize. The classmate who asked Kai Yi just now heard that he was the legendary horse racing master that he had heard of before. Especially now that the horse racing was about to take place, this person worshipped Kai Yi even more. Hey, I only won the second prize. As long as you persevere like me and race every day for 3 years, it's something that anyone can do. Kai Yi still felt that he didn't have enough firepower, so he said very modestly. Sometimes, the more modest the words were, the more high-profile they were. Kai Yi was so modest just to show off his high profile, that was all. Kai Yi's words were heard by more students around him. Therefore, the students praised him one after another. So amazing. Look, people who are amazing are also trained. It's 3 years, and he can persevere like this. He's really amazing. I really admire him. He can be called the school's most handsome guy. The surrounding students began to talk about it, which made Kai Yi even more arrogant. It was as if he was really an amazing person. On this side, Zhang Xiaofeng was angry, but Yun Jian walked to the horse group. She narrowed her eyes and reached out to untie a horse tied to a wooden pole. I'll choose this one. Hey, little girl, this horse is not easy to control. This horse is the fiercest horse here. Anyone who gets on its back will fall off in less than 3 seconds. Only the top horse trainer can barely ride on its back. If you get on it, you'll break your leg. When Uncle Zhang saw Yun Jian untie the horse, he hurriedly ran over to stop her. Uncle Zhang, why don't I try to tame this horse? Although I'm not the best, I've been learning for 3 years. When Kai Yi heard Uncle Zhang's words, he suppressed the restlessness in his heart and walked over to Uncle Zhang from afar. This. Uncle Zhang revealed a troubled expression. Uncle Zhang, don't worry. I can definitely do it. Kai Yi said very confidently. He was just waiting to shine in front of everyone. Okay. Uncle Zhang was silent for 2 seconds before he nodded in agreement. Yun Jian didn't say anything. She just stood there and watched Kai Yi lead the horse in front of everyone. Because of Uncle Zhang's words, the surrounding people tensed up and looked over. Uncle Zhang said that this horse could only be tamed by a top-notch horse trainer. Kai Yi's current actions were obviously a challenge to tame this ferocious horse. Therefore, the surrounding people were attracted over. At the same time, each of them nervously looked at the scene that was about to happen in front of them. Kai Yi felt that the surrounding people were sizing him up. He couldn't wait to show off even more. Therefore, Kai Yi simply grabbed the reins and forcefully stepped on the stirrups to sit on the back of this ferocious horse. Just as he sat on the back of this ferocious horse, the horse roared and shook crazily. Kai Yi was stunned for a few seconds. He desperately grabbed the reins, but in less than 3 seconds, he was thrown to the ground by the horse. Kai Yi endured the pain and quickly stood up. Then, in order to not embarrass himself, he deliberately explained, "This horse is really a ferocious horse. I don't think anyone here can tame it." Just as he said this, everyone saw a small figure flash in front of everyone. They saw Yun Jian quickly step forward. She used 3 seconds to rush to the front of the horse from afar. Then, she fiercely kicked her legs and directly flipped over. She didn't even need to step on the stirrups and directly got on the back of the horse. Then, in the same second, she reached out and grabbed the reins of the horse. The moment the horse roared crazily, she grabbed the reins and used the reins to restrain the restless horse in the shortest time possible. Until the horse was completely quiet and tamed by her. Chapter 1268. Yun Jian's words were loud and clear. Her voice echoed throughout the hall and everyone was stunned. She actually rode on the back of this horse. Didn't they say that this horse was wild? Didn't they say that only the best horse trainers could tame it? Some students stared blankly as Yunjian mounted the horse. Especially when Kai Yi was thrown off the horse in less than 3 seconds, no one doubted that this was a wild horse. What kind of capability did Yunjian have to be able to do what she did just now to be able to ride such a dark horse? A few of the boys who had their limelight stolen by Kai Yi just now and were still holding a grudge saw this and clapped their hands and shouted, "Good, good. Yunjian, good job. You didn't embarrass our class A." Even though everyone had graduated, they still referred to each other as their class. Kai Yi wasn't from their class, so the boys in Year 3 Class A were extremely displeased when they saw Kai Yi and Lin Ziheng being called by their classmates and showing off at their graduation ceremony. They just didn't show it on their faces. When Kai Yi fell off the horse just now, the boys in Yunjian's class wanted to clap and cheer, but they didn't show it directly. Yunjian got on the horse after Kai Yi fell off because he couldn't control it. This action was like giving Kai Yi a big slap in the face. Therefore, the group of boys in the class cheered and howled. They were so excited that they couldn't control themselves. Kai Yi was in a hurry to get up just now to explain himself, but he ended up being bullied by Yunjian. His expression darkened instantly. "Cousin." At this moment, Kai Yi's cousin, Kai Lin, walked up to Kai Yi and handed him a few tissues. Kai Lin was Yunjian's classmate and Kai Yi was here today because of Kai Lin's invitation. After Kai Lin walked over and handed the tissues to Kai Yi, she turned around and looked at the crowd. At the same time, she glared fiercely at Yunjian from the corner of her eye and said, "It's nothing to be able to ride a horse. Horse racing is all about skill. My cousin's horse racing skills were once praised by a national horse racing coach. That coach once represented country Z in an international competition. I heard that he even won a grand prize." Kai Lin said it in a very high-profile manner. She didn't believe that Yunjian was an advanced special forces soldier. This was already unbelievable. Could she be an all-round secret agent? Just like the secret agents in the movies who could blend in with all kinds of professionals without being discovered. Was she an extremely powerful existence? Pfft, wasn't this a joke? How old was she? Kai Lin was very unhappy. She had been unhappy with Yunjian for a long time. That's amazing. Immediately, some girls began to chime in. "Oh my God, he is so awesome. He was praised by a national horse racing coach." The girls began to grit their teeth again. At this moment, Yunjian had already firmly restrained the horse. She pulled the reins and led the horse to Gu Nianji with ease. She didn't care what the people around her were saying. Yunjian merely smiled and hooked her index finger at Gu Nianji, saying, "I'll give you a chance to set you free as long as you choose a horse to race against me." Yunjian's words successfully attracted everyone's attention. Gu Nianji made an exaggerated expression when she was called and pointed at the horses before saying, "What, you want me to use this inferior horse that can't fly to race against you? Are you kidding me?" Yunjian and Gu Nianji's conversation shocked everyone. Chapter 1269. Kai Lin had 1 or 2 friends with her as well. It was easy for girls to get jealous, especially after what Yunjian had just done and said. She had attracted everyone's attention. Therefore, after Kai Lin finished speaking, a few girls immediately followed suit and pointed at Yunjian, Gu Nianji, and Qingyu. Yunjian pretended not to hear them. She stared at Gu Nianji, the curve of her lips clearly visible. Girls were mostly just talking to other girls. Seeing that Yunjian was not listening, Kai Lin and the girls around her could only give up. Gu Nianji felt uncomfortable being stared at by Yunjian. In the end, Gu Nianji looked at Yunjian awkwardly and stammered, will you really set me free if I win? I'll only give you one chance. I won't wait for it after that. Yunjian crossed her arms and looked at Gu Nianji without saying a word. Fine. Let's compete. Although this horse is a little low class, Gu Nianji, don't want to be tied up like a prisoner again. Gu Nianji narrowed her eyes. You two young ladies want to compete in horse racing? Uncle Zhang walked up to Yunjian and Gu Nianji and asked kindly. Yunjian answered. Young ladies, this is the only racetrack we have here. I'm sure all of you youngsters would want to race, and you don't have much time. Let's see if it's a 5-person race. You two young ladies can still compete. Uncle Zhang opened his mouth to explain. There was only one racetrack here. If these 40 to 50 students from Yunjian's class and their friends and relatives wanted to race one-on-one, there would not be enough time in the afternoon. Although many of them could not even make the horse run while riding, since the students were all here, they would definitely want everyone to experience the feeling of horse racing. I have no objections. Yunjian didn't have any objections because she only wanted to race with Gu Nianji. It had nothing to do with her if someone else got involved. Good. Then we'll add 3 more people for the first round of horse racing. Who wants to participate in the first round? Uncle Zhang heaved a sigh of relief and said to the crowd. Sister Jian, you two have fun. I won't join in the fun. Qingyu loosened her grip on Gu Nianji's arm easily. Finally untied, Gu Nianji stretched lazily. I'll do it. Kai Yi's voice rang out. Then, Kai Yi walked over to them. Are there any other 2 students who want to compete in the first round? Why don't you come together? Uncle Zhang nodded towards Kai Yi and said. In the end, 2 boys who didn't know how to ride horses were pushed out. It could be said that the 2 of them had never seen a live horse before, let alone know how to ride one. However, the 2 of them were still brave enough to stand out and give it a try. This was worthy of praise. Thus, Yunjian, Gu Nianji, Kai Yi, and the 2 male students each pulled their chosen horses and lined up side by side at the starting line of the horse racing venue. They were ready. Cousin, do your best. You're the best. First place will definitely be yours. Kai Lin stood a distance away and cheered with her hands cupped around her mouth. Hearing his cousin's words, Kai Yi's nervousness calmed down instantly. Speaking of which, Yunjian was just an ordinary junior high school graduate. Even if she had suppressed the wild horse just now, what did that mean? Thinking of this, Kai Yi turned to lecture Yunjian and Gu Nianji to calm himself down. Chapter 1270. Not only was Kai Yi lecturing Yunjian and Gu Nianji directly, it sounded like he was boasting when he said it. He said that he would not let Yunjian and Gu Nianji win because of his love for horse racing. The reason was very valid. Kai Yi's words indirectly implied that he would definitely win against Yunjian and Gu Nianji. Yunjian merely scoffed at Kai Yi's words. Gu Nianji scratched her head and thought to herself, how can there be such a dumb fool on this earth? Is he really dumb or just pretending to be dumb? How dare he say such things in front of her and Yunjian? Other things aside, Gu Nianji knew that Yunjian was someone with real ability. At least, it was an indisputable fact that she could not defeat Yunjian. That was why she was now Yunjian's captive. Kai Yi coughed dryly when he saw that Yunjian and Gu Nianji were ignoring him. He was obviously embarrassed. However, the cheers of the girls around him boosted Kai Yi's confidence. The girls around him were shouting. Hey, don't you think this guy is handsome? He is. Didn't Kai Lin say that he won a prize in a provincial horse race? I think he'll be the champion this time. Of course. The people outside had no idea what was happening here. At the same time, in Yunjian and Ce house, Ce was sitting in the study. Shuang and Mo Sen, who had returned to Enhun's headquarters, stood before him. Shuang took a step forward with a frown and told Ce, "Young master, Lin Wei has brought people from the organization here. Their destination is the racecourse in the outskirts of Longmen City." Ce raised a brow, obviously unaware that Yunjian was at the racecourse. Ce raised a brow and paused before he smirked. "No matter what the remnants of the former Inferno Ring are here for, none of them must be left alive today." "Yes. Young master." "Yes. Young master." Shuang and Mo Sen nodded after listening. "It's about to start. I don't have a whistle here, so I'll use this red flag as a whistle. Once I wave this red flag, the match will begin," Uncle Zhang explained as he stood beside the starting line. No one felt that Uncle Zhang's words were inappropriate. Thus, Kai and the other two quickly prepared themselves for a tense mental state. On the other hand, Yunjian and Gu Nianji looked relaxed. They didn't look like they were about to compete at all. Seeing this, Kai sneered again and muttered in his heart, "That's right." He didn't even feel nervous before the race, and he still wanted to race. It would be strange if he could win. "Get ready, everyone. Get ready." Uncle Zhang raised the red flag high and started counting down. Hearing Uncle Zhang's voice, Kai's heart tightened again. He would definitely win, definitely. He even got a place in the Zhe province's horse race. How could he not win against two girls? As for the other two boys, there was no need to even mention them. Just as Kai thought of this, Uncle Zhang roared, "Begin." At the same time, Uncle Zhang waved the small red flag in his hand. It was only then that Kai tightened his grip on the reins. Just as he was about to whip the horse to get it to run, two silhouettes suddenly appeared. Two silhouettes who were much faster than him were already galloping toward the racecourse on horseback. Seeing this, Kai even forgot to whip the horse to gallop as he watched the two silhouettes gallop away in a daze. The crowd from afar saw it as well. Under Uncle Zhang's command, the two silhouettes galloped away on their horses like lightning. Those who mocked Yunjian and Gu Nianji in the beginning widened their eyes in bewilderment. Chapter 1271. Kai was stunned from the start as he stood rooted to the ground with the whip in his hand. It was only when Yunjian and Gu Nianji were 10 meters away that Kai snapped back to his senses. He immediately chased after them with the whip in his hand. As for the other two boys, because they had never learned how to race horses, the two of them grabbed the reins and pulled. They accidentally drove the horses to a place that was not the racetrack and completely deviated from the racetrack. Of course, none of the students present paid any attention to the two boys. From the moment Yunjian and Gu Nianji charged out of the starting line and left Kai in the dust, everyone knew that Kai would definitely lose this round. The key now lay in the outcome of Yunjian and Gu Nianji's victory. Of course, at the beginning, it did give everyone a shock. No one had expected Yunjian and Gu Nianji to be so good at it. He actually rushed out of the starting line right from the start and left Kai in the dust right from the start. "Oh my god, Yunjian and that girl are amazing." Someone began to shout as they watched Yunjian and Gu Nianji charge out. Don't forget that Yunjian is an advanced special forces soldier. She's the slayer of Team Monarch. Someone reminded. The people around them shrieked and exclaimed for Yunjian when they heard it. At that moment, everyone's attention was on Yunjian and Gu Nianji from afar. There was an endless stream of cheers and screams. Kai Lin's face immediately turned pale. How was that possible? How could her cousin, Kai lose to Yunjian and that girl? Look! There! Someone shouted, pointing at Yun Jian and Gu Nianji's departing figures. Everyone turned to look. They saw Yun Jian holding on to the reins and gradually leaving Gu Nianji behind. Gu Nianji was having a hard time chasing after her. However, it was not hard to tell that Gu Nianji was not to be underestimated. "Oh my god, I've been at the racecourse for 30 to 40 years. This is the first time I've seen such an exciting race." Even Uncle Zhang couldn't help but grab the red flag that was used as a whistle to prepare for the start. His entire body tensed up. After all, Uncle Zhang was a professional, so when the people around him heard Uncle Zhang's words, their hearts tightened at this moment. If even Uncle Zhang said so, then how incredible were Yun Jian and Gu Nianji. When they were about to reach the finish line, Yun Jian and Gu Nianji had maintained their pace one after the other. In the last 10 seconds of the sprint, Yun Jian suddenly grabbed the reins and sped up. Gu Nianji had already reached her limit and could no longer speed up. In the last few seconds, Yun Jian reached the finish line 5 seconds faster than Gu Nian. As soon as she crossed the finish line, Yun Jian jumped. The horse was still galloping. Her jump was a very dangerous move, but Yun Jian was able to do it smoothly. With a leap, Yun Jian landed on the flat ground and grabbed the reins to rein the wild horse that was about to gallop away. In at most 3 seconds, she had completed this series of actions. Gu Nianji pulled the reins and slowly slowed the horse down from the finish line. By the time Gu Nianji stopped, Yun Jian was already looking at her with narrowed eyes. Gu Nianji also jumped off the horse's back. Both of them were very agile and did not match the age of a teenage girl. Everyone around them was dumbfounded. However, they saw Gu Nianji take 2 steps toward Yun Jian. She laughed and said to Yun Jian, "I admit defeat. Yun Jian, from today onwards, Gu Nianji, will work for you. Will you take me in?" Chapter 1272. Yun Jian's words almost made Gu Nianji vomit blood. She had thought about it for a long time before coming to this decision. Gu Nianji had already made up her mind when the horse race was about to begin. If Yun Jian could win against her, she would follow Yun Jian. After all, Gu Nianji's ability in Yulong mainland was not to be underestimated. What would she do if she could find someone who was stronger than her on Earth? What else could she do? Of course, she would cling on to her fiercely. She would not leave even if she was chased away to learn from her master. "Ah, little captive, it looks like you can't escape." Qing Yu walked over from not far away and giggled. Actually, the starting point was also the ending point. Why was it so? Because starting from the starting point and running one round around the racetrack, one would still end up back at the starting point. At least the racetrack here was built similar to a school's field. The surrounding students all stood rooted to the ground. Other than Kai Lin's group of girls, everyone else was extremely impressed with Yun Jian. Especially Yun Jian's handsome appearance just now. It was exactly the style they wanted. Kai Lin frowned when she saw that her cousin, Kai Yi, did not catch up. She finally could not take it anymore. Now that she saw Yun Jian being admired by her classmates, she was even angrier. However, Kai Lin was smarter. She never showed her disgust towards others on her face. She heard Gu Nianji say that she wanted to follow Yun Jian just now. Here came the question. What did she want to do with Yun Jian? Seizing the opportunity to make things difficult for Yun Jian, Kai Lin immediately walked over. "Congratulations on winning. You guys are amazing." Kai Lin said this first, then continued to speak to Yun Jian in front of everyone with a fake smile. "What were you guys talking about just now? Why did you say that you want to follow you? What do you want to do? Hey, what you said just now made it sound like you want to mingle with the mafia, just like the Secret Service assassins in the movies. Don't say that in the future." You two are girls after all. Don't be so careless. Fighting for first place with a boy is not something a girl should do. We girls should be gentle and quiet. Otherwise, you won't be able to get married in the future. Kai Lin changed her arrogant tone from before, where she thought Kai Yi would win without a doubt. She deliberately made herself look very calm, then walked up to Yun Jian and loudly lectured them. The onlookers listened to Kai Lin's lecture. That seems to make sense. Therefore, a few girls followed Kai Lin's lead and responded. In the end, it was as if Yun Jian and Gu Nianji had snatched first place from Kai Yi and were in the wrong. Yun Jian sneered and said nothing. Kai Lin glanced at her and thought that Yun Jian was speechless because of her words, so Kai Lin smiled secretly. He thought to himself, what Yun Jian? What advanced special forces? Does she really think she's a gangster? Especially the woman who competed with Yun Jian in horse racing. She even said that she wanted to work for Yun Jian. Did he think he was a gangster? Kai Lin hated the smug look on her face. Especially the way Gu Nianji spoke to Yun Jian. It was as if she was really going to do something big. Just as Kai Lin finished thinking this, 3 or 4 vans drove into the horse track. Then, a group of masked men in black got out of the vans. Originally, everyone looked in that direction out of curiosity. Why were there so many strange people at the horse track? However, when this group of people got out of the vans and ran in front of everyone with all kinds of guns in their hands and surrounded them, Kai Lin and everyone else at the scene felt that something was wrong. It was also at this moment that a burly man who was 2 meters tall and had arms as thick as a copper wall stood in front of everyone. Chapter 1273. As the man spoke, he grabbed a machine gun and suddenly fired at the lawn not far in front of them. Ah! 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 Guns, these are real guns. Initially, Kai Lin, Qi Xiao, Lin Zihong, and the rest were only secretly afraid when these people appeared. After all, handguns were banned in Country Z. The appearance of a real gun and a toy gun could not be distinguished, but the bullets in a real gun were loaded with gunpowder. Toy guns could only hold a few toy bullets that were smaller than soybeans at most. They could not kill. Initially, Kai Lin and the rest thought that these men who appeared out of nowhere were just trying to show off by standing in front of them with toy guns. Although they did not know the motive of these men, Kai Lin and the rest were not afraid in the beginning. However, it wasn't until this burly man, who was 2 meters tall and had arms as thick as iron walls, stood in front of everyone, grabbed a machine gun, and started shooting at the empty ground. Only then did they realize what was going on. This was a gun. A real gun. The man frowned. Although the horse farm was surrounded by lawns and there were no houses other than the straw hut that Uncle Zhang had built himself, these people were screaming in fear. But this group of people kept screaming in panic. If someone heard them, it would be troublesome. Especially since they had not found their target. The man suddenly raised his voice. His face was covered by black gauze so they could not tell which country he was from. I'll kill you all if you dare to speak again. As he spoke, the man grabbed the machine gun and fired at the ground again. Everyone, including Kai Lin, squatted down in fear, not daring to make a sound. These people were criminals. They had guns. They had guns in their hands. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Qing Yu, who was standing beside Yun Jian, wanted to intervene, but Yun Jian grabbed her hand. If she guessed correctly, the man who stood in front with a black gauze covering his face and speaking in Mandarin was actually a mature foreign man. He was the remnant force of the former Inferno ring that had yet to be completely eradicated. He was even in cahoots with the mysterious person who had controlled people and killed Xiao Yunju in his previous life. He was the one who tied Jin Gang. This Tai Jin gang was the subordinate of the leader of the Inferno Ring, Job, who had been killed by Yun Jian. But in reality, Job was just a figurehead of the Inferno Ring. The Tai Jingang's status was even higher than Job's. In other words, the Tai Jin gang was the mysterious man's subordinate. The truth was, Yun Jian's guess was right. The 2-meter-tall man standing in front of Yun Jian was Tai Jin gang. Tai Jin gang held the machine gun in his hand and glared at the group of people in front of him. After waiting for a while, no one stepped forward. Tai Jin gang was impatient. He held the machine gun tighter and shouted again, "SS, I know you're here. I'll give you 10 seconds. If you don't come out, I'll use the machine gun to kill everyone here." Tai Jin gang said fiercely. Kai Lin and Yun Jian's classmates, including Kai Yi, Qi Xiao, Lin Zihang and the rest who had just returned from the racetrack, did not know what SS was. They did not even know what SS was. No. No. Don't kill us. We really don't know what SS is. Which one of you is SS? Step forward, we don't want to die, sob sob sob. Some people had already started to cry out in despair. Tai Jin gang ignored them. He held the machine gun and started to count to 3. Just when everyone was about to pee their pants, a cold female voice, completely unfazed by the horrifying scene, said, "Tai Jin gang, how dare you look for me? Do you want me to kill you?" Surrounded by so many people led by Tai Jin gang, Yun Jian stood up fearlessly and spoke. However, when the surrounding students heard Yun Jian's words, they were almost scared to death. Yun Jian was the SS they were talking about. What did SS mean? And did she know what she was talking about? He had a gun in his hand. She actually dared to talk to him like that. Did she want to die? Chapter 1274. Tai Jin gang had only received information that SS was at the racecourse. This information was very accurate because it was revealed to Tai Jin gang by the mysterious person in Yun Jian's eyes. That was why Iron King Kong had brought his men here to kill the SS monster, so as to make a great contribution to the mysterious man. Tai Jin gang had thought that SS was at least in her 20s no matter how young she was. However, when Yun Jian stood up and spoke, Tai Jin gang turned his head and looked in her direction. He froze on the spot. The young girl in front of him had delicate features and a beautiful face that made him feel mesmerized from the bottom of his heart. That petite face, coupled with that perfect figure, was a perfect match for the golden ratio. The young girl in front of him was at most 15 or 16 years old, right? Underage. SS, it's actually a young girl who's still underage. How was this possible? Tai Jin gang was completely stunned. Kai Lin, Kai Yi, Uncle Zhang, Yun Jian's classmates were all dumbfounded as they stared at the scene in front of them with wide eyes. Putting aside what SS meant, the group of people in front of them were obviously criminals. In their hands, there were all kinds of guns that even some of the gun-loving boys present couldn't name. How dare Yun Jian speak to them in such a tone? Did she have a death wish? Just as everyone thought of this, they saw Yun Jian take 2 steps forward towards Tai Jin gang. Yun Jian's lips curled up. Her smile was shy, but it gave people a sense of danger. Even Tai Jin gang, who was holding a machine gun in his hand, couldn't help but take 2 steps back. This scene was clearly seen by everyone in the surroundings. This burly, 2-meter-tall man with a machine gun in his hand was actually afraid of Yun Jian, who didn't have anything in her hands. Was Yun Jian really that powerful? Although everyone in the class knew that Yun Jian was an advanced special forces soldier, they didn't believe in Yun Jian's age at all. Standing afar, Lin Zihang, who had wanted to kill Yun Jian when she overheard his conversation with Qi Xiao. He even wanted Qi Xiao to record his conversation so that he could threaten Yun Jian in the end, shuddered. Even Tai Jingang, who was holding a machine gun, was afraid of Yun Jian. Lin Zihang suddenly realized that his and Qi Xiao's delusions of dealing with Yun Jian was simply a pipe dream. At this moment, Yun Jian looked straight at Tai Jingang. She wasn't afraid at all and even crossed her arms lazily as she looked at Tai Jingang and said, "You're amazing, you're able to find me." Her identity was sealed off from all corners of the world. It was harder for outsiders to find her than to reach the heavens. Tai Jingang clenched his fists, the bones between his fingers cracking. Then, Tai Jingang looked at Yun Jian and said in a slightly louder voice, "SS, you won't be able to escape today. I'll kill you right here and now." "Oh. Is that so? Are you sure you can kill me with these lousy guns of yours?" Yun Jian glanced at Tai Jingang and Tai Jingang's men with all kinds of guns and chuckled. Tai Jingang's fists clenched tighter. Yes, Yun Jian never boasted. If slaying God, the top secret agent in the international secret agent ranking, could be killed by his men with guns, she would not be slaying God anymore. She should have given up her position a long time ago. "Sister Jian, you don't have to fight these people," Qingyu said faintly as she stepped out from the crowd's attention. As she spoke, she took out a few poisonous needles. She had soaked the needles in poisonous water. Once they pierced a person's skin, the person would die instantly. "You're Lady Femme Fatale." Tai Jingang glanced at Qingyu with a frown and cried out. Qingyu's codename was Lady Femme Fatale. Her name in the underworld was terrifying due to her poison. These changes shocked Kai Lin, Kai Yi, and the others, but no one dared to make a sound at this moment. Lady Femme Fatale. What SS? Did they think that they were acting? They gave themselves another codename. Chapter 1275. What SS? What Femme Fatale? You guys must be acting, right? And the bullets from those guns don't have gunpowder or bullets, so they can't kill anyone, right? When one of the boys saw this, he suddenly shouted out in fear, just to comfort himself. Everything in front of him was fake. The people in front of him must be joking. None of this was real. He did not need to be afraid. The boy comforted himself. Acting? Pfft. I think I just heard the funniest joke. Tai Jingang chuckled, redirecting his attention back to Tai Jingang. Tai Jingang was someone who was closely related to assassins and secret agents. At the same time, his ability was unlike those third-rate assassins. Yun Jian might look lazy, but she was actually paying attention to Tai Jingang and everyone else's actions. She, Yun Jian, was never conceited. Even if she looked extremely lazy on the outside, even if she was so confident that it was unbearable. Even if she had to fight a beggar by the roadside, she would never underestimate anyone. No one could guarantee that the person standing in front of them was weak. However, if they did not have Yun Jian's mentality, showing their emotions on their face no matter who they were fighting and letting their opponents realize that they were constantly on guard against their surroundings, such a person would definitely be a weakling. Not letting others see through one's inner thoughts was the most basic skill of a secret agent. Tai Jingang's every move was under Yun Jian's control. Yun Jian did not make a sound, but if one were to observe closely, they would see a flash of light in her eyes. "Kid, I'll let you have a taste of this bullet's power." Iron King Kong laughed maniacally. At the same time, he pointed his machine gun at the boy who had just said that everything was fake. If this bullet were to be fired, the boy's body would be turned into a beehive. Forget about surviving, it would be a problem if his corpse would even be intact. Although the boy felt that all of this was fake, he still trembled. Anyone who had a machine gun pointed at their body, even if it was a fake one, would still be afraid. However, just as the boy, including everyone present, was thinking about this, Tai Jin Gang had already aimed the machine gun at the boy, and his finger was on the trigger. Ah! The people standing around instantly shouted. Everyone saw that the bullets fired by the Iron King Kong had a flash of fire. Even if it didn't kill anyone, it would definitely hurt them to death. In particular, the Tai Jin Gang group's disguise made the surrounding people even more convinced that the guns in their hands were real. Don't kill me, don't kill me. Ah! Even the boy just now held his head and shouted. Hee, you dare to question me? Go to hell. Tai Jin Gang didn't care about this. After he finished growling, his hand was already pulling the trigger. However, the crowd only heard half of Tai Jingang's roar when a sharp female voice sounded. You want to kill someone in front of me? Dream on. Just as this voice sounded, everyone saw a small and delicate figure pass by in front of them. Within 3 breaths, Yun Jian's figure had already arrived in front of Tai Jin Gang. She lifted her leg and kicked Tai Jingang's wrist accurately. Tai Jin Gang frowned. He had been stopped from shooting the boy, but Yun Jian hadn't kicked his wrist. Tai Jin Gang took a big step back at the same time. Tai Jingang's strength really couldn't be underestimated. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She changed her strategy and directly pounced on Tai Jin Gang. However, just as she was about to reach Tai Jin Gang, she turned to the right and kicked Tai Jingang's waist from the side. Bang! This time, Tai Jin Gang was kicked by Yun Jian and fell directly to the ground. However, after Tai Jin Gang was kicked to the ground, he rolled twice on the ground and stood up in the next second. If someone else had been kicked by Yun Jian, they definitely wouldn't be able to stand up within half an hour. Tai Jin Gang was indeed powerful. He turned over and stood up a second after being kicked. Yun Jian stood in the same place. She curled her lips and sneered at Tai Jin Gang. You can survive one move from me. You're really powerful. Chapter 1276. Her younger brother's death in her previous life was fatally related to the Tai Jin Gang in front of her. Tai Jin Gang was the culprit, the subordinate of the mysterious person. Even if Tai Jin Gang did not come today, Yun Jian would have been searching for Tai Jin Gang. Now that Tai Jin Gang had come knocking on her door, there was no way he could leave this place alive. Sister Jian, you don't have to do anything with these people's capabilities. Qin Yu came up with a pair of poison needles in each of her fingers. Qin Yu went to Tai Jin Gang with the needles. Not only Tai Jin Gang, even the men standing beside Tai Jin Gang flinched and took 2 steps back. It was not that they were cowards, it was just that Qin Yu's capability was too frightening. Qin Yu's combat ability was not strong, but no one in the world would dare claim to be the best if she claimed to be the second best at poisoning. Who had not heard of the Venom Lady? The codename of Lady Venom was Qin Yu's moniker after she had killed countless international bosses and presidents of some countries without a sound back then due to her horrifying poison skills. Who would not be afraid of the Venom Lady's nickname internationally? Capture one alive, wipe out the rest. After that, she crossed her arms and spoke to Qin Yu nonchalantly, looking at the group before her. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. Understood. Qin Yu accepted the order and put the needles away with a flip of her hand before taking out a pair of transparent gloves from her pocket. The gloves were about the same thickness as the plastic wrap, and they looked almost the same. In spite of it, their function was completely different. Qin Yu's transparent gloves were made by herself. She could hold any poison she made directly when she wore them. As long as she wore this pair of gloves, she could completely defend herself against poisons that could be fatal if they came into contact with her skin. Qingyu put the gloves on and took out the needles again with a flip of her hand. Holding them in her hand, she walked toward Tai Jin-gang and his men. Secret agents, assassins, mercenaries, and special forces who had reached a certain level of capability could dodge bullets. Therefore, Tai Jin-gang knew that their guns were completely useless against Qingyu and Yunjian. "Qingyu, you dummy. Don't go alone. I haven't fought in a long time. Wait for me." Gu Nianji was moving her limbs now, her bones cracking loudly. Gu Nianji walked over as she did so. Seeing that Qingyu and Gu Nianji were attacking, Yunjian stood aside and did not plan to attack. "Little captive, what are you doing here?" Qingyu, on the other hand, did not care about Iron King Kong's group at all. She even turned to joke with Gu Nianji. In reality, although Qingyu had turned to look at Gu Nianji, she was glaring at Iron King Kong and the rest from the corner of her eyes. F***ck me, Qingyu, if you dare call me little captive again, I'll... Gu Nianji pouted, but before she could finish her sentence, Qingyu interrupted her. Bang! 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 A series of gunshots rang out. Yunjian had already noticed it, but she did not say anything. On the other end, Tai Jingang's men who were standing beside him were falling one after another. Tai Jin-gang did not even realize what was happening. Ce, who was standing far away, had already seen Yunjian. He frowned slightly. Lin Wei was leading Enhan's assassins to snipe Tai Jingang's men from afar while Ce walked toward Yunjian in the rain of bullets. Chapter 1277. Yunjian had only said it casually, but Uncle Zhang and all of Yunjian's classmates were so frightened that they quickly looked for trash cans or other defensive places to hide. The boy who was saved by Yunjian earlier looked at Yunjian gratefully and was the first to find a place to hide. What the boy did not know was that Yunjian had not stepped forward to save him because she cared about his life or death. When she said, "Dream on if you want to kill someone in front of me," everyone present, including Tai Jin-gang, thought that Yunjian was protecting them. As a secret agent and assassin, she was not a saint. There was no need for her to protect anyone. Yunjian would not care even if the boy died in front of her. However, Yunjian had made a move just now. If one were to ask why, the reason was simple. Yunjian had only wanted to test Tai Jingang's ability. Yunjian would never underestimate a powerful enemy. Under such circumstances, it was only natural for her to test the opponent's ability. Saving the boy earlier was a piece of cake. In reality, Yunjian's real intention was only to test Tai Jingang's ability. If she could test a person's ability before making a move, it would be easier for Yunjian to kill Tai Jin-gang in one move. As her soul returned to reality, Yunjian was already rushing toward Tai Jin-gang. Qingyu and Gu Nianji were only surprised for a moment before they followed Yunjian's pace and dashed over. Lin Wei was still leading Enhan's assassins to snipe Tai Jingang's underlings from afar. As a result, Tai Jin-gang and his men were sandwiched in the middle by Yunjian and Ce's men. They were attacked from the front and back. Damn it! Kill! Kill! Tai Jin-gang finally reacted. More than half of his men had already been killed by Lin Wei and the Enhan's assassins. Naturally, Lin Wei's strength was not to be underestimated. He led the assassins to snipe Tai Jingang's group from afar, and they were simply able to kill them one by one. Kai Lin, Kai Yi, Qi Xiao Xiao, Lin Zihang, and the others who were hiding in the trash can or hiding in various places were all pale with fright as they watched the people collapse one by one. This was beyond the limits of the black market. This was a battle of life and death. Life and death were only separated by a single thought. As long as he wasn't strong enough, 1 second was enough. 1 second was enough to take a life. Just as she was thinking about this, Kai Lin suddenly felt a small figure flash before her eyes. Yun Jian led Qing Yu and Gu Nianji into the chaotic battle without the slightest fear of being accidentally killed by Lin Wei and Enhan's assassins. At the time, Kai Lin had even mocked Gu Nianji by saying that she was working for Yun Jian. She made it sound like she was a gangster. At this moment, Kai Lin felt that her face was burning, as if she had been slapped hard in the face. Kai Lin's expression was terrible. However, it was also at this moment that she saw Yun Jian killing one of Tai Jingang's underlings in a few moves after charging into the crowd. Then, she went straight to Tai Jingang. At the same time, Yun Jian held a butterfly knife in her hand. The blade of this butterfly knife was made from the god-vanquishing blade. It could kill everything in the world, even the gods of deity continent. Yun Jian held the butterfly knife and stood in front of Tai Jingang. Tai Jingang was ready to retreat, but when he saw the butterfly knife in Yun Jian's hand, Tai Jingang's eyes widened and he screamed in horror, "The God-vanquishing blade! Yun Jian, be careful. He's from Yulong mainland." Gu Nianji looked at Tai Jingang and suddenly shouted at Yun Jian with widened eyes. Tai Jingang reacted in the next second and realized that things were not as simple as he thought. Therefore, Tai Jingang risked not being able to cultivate for 100 years and directly used the spiritual power of Yulong mainland on earth. What is that? The people standing in the distance saw this and were so scared that their faces turned pale. In the next second, Yun Jian's voice sounded, "You've lost." Her voice was cold as if there was no warmth at all. However, when Yun Jian came within 3 meters of Tai Jingang, the spiritual power that Tai Jingang had just used was instantly broken. He instantly became an ordinary person. Pfft. In the next breath, the butterfly knife in Yun Jian's hand had already pierced Tai Jingang's heart. There was only one person in the world who could make someone from Yulong mainland lose their spiritual power within 3 meters of them. Witch? You're the witch goddess. Before he could say the word Lord, Tai Jingang saw Yun Jian smile coldly and say the last words that Tai Jingang heard in this world before he died. "I said, you've lost." With that, Yun Jian withdrew the butterfly knife. Chapter 1278. With Tai Jingang dead, Tai Jingang's underlings were defeated instantly. Especially with Lin Wei leading in Hun's ambush from afar, with Qing Yu and Gu Nianji's help nearby. Tai Jingang's underlings were all dead in no time. Of course, following Yun Jian's initial wishes, Tai Jingang's underlings were all killed, leaving only one alive. Lin Wei and Shuang from afar rushed over with Enhan's assassins. Watching Tai Jingang being killed by Yun Jian just like that, Kai Lin and the rest who were standing afar saw Tai Jingang use the spiritual power of Yulong mainland before he died. Tai Jingang's hand suddenly emitted a strong light, but he was killed by Yun Jian before the light could be released. Therefore, the people from afar only thought that Tai Jingang had taken out something like a flashlight. After all, they were standing afar, and no one would have thought that Tai Jingang came from Yulong mainland. This was because they did not even know of Yulong mainland's existence. This was an era where people believed in science. If they were to believe in another world, they would not believe in it unless they had truly seen and experienced it. That group of people. Seeing Lin Wei and Shuang leading Enhan's assassins from afar, Kai Lin and the rest were still trembling in fear, not daring to come out. Zhang Xiaofeng, Chen Xinyi, and Ling Yichen had seen more terrifying scenes than this. Although they did not ask Yun Jian directly, the three of them knew that Yun Jian was not a simple person. Moreover, Yun Jian knew some international figures. Especially when they saw Ce, Zhang Xiaofeng and the rest understood immediately. Zhang Xiaofeng and the other two knew that Ce was Yunjian's boyfriend, so Zhang Xiaofeng and the other two walked out when they saw that Tai Jingang and the others were dead. In the distance, Kai Lin and the others were scared out of their wits when they saw the corpses of Tai Jingang and the others. How would they dare to come over? While Yunjian remained where she was, Ce came up to her and grabbed Yunjian's hand. Xiao Jian, why didn't you tell me you're here? With that, Ce pulled Yunjian into his embrace. He didn't care that Yunjian's classmates were still watching from afar. He only had eyes for Yunjian. It's a class reunion. We're here to ride a horse. Yunjian pursed her red lips and explained. Ce smirked. As long as he saw Yunjian, all his anxiety was gone. Ce answered softly. Young madam, young master, I've kidnapped him. As Shuang spoke, he tossed Tai Jingang's underling who was intentionally spared to Yunjian and Ce. Shuang purposely put Yunjian in front when he addressed her because he knew that the young madam's current status was even higher than the young master's. If the young madam wanted the young master to kneel and sing, conquer, the young master would not reject her. Shuang thought that he should suck up to Yunjian and beg Yunjian to let the young master sing, conquer, for them. Bring him back first and clean up the scene, Ce told Shuang. With that, he caressed Yunjian's head affectionately. Qi Xiaoxiao, who was watching from afar, was envious of the gesture. Although Lin Zihang was good-looking, he was not on the same level as Ce. But it was a pity that Lin Zihang was definitely richer than this good-looking guy. Just as she was thinking about this, Ce had already pulled Yunjian's hand and walked out of the racecourse. When Chen Xinyi saw this, she wanted to follow but was stopped by Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen with evil smiles on their faces. After Shuang agreed, he walked towards the crowd that was hiding in various places. After a pause, Shuang asked, "Who's in charge of the racecourse?" At this moment, Uncle Zhang stepped forward timidly. Chapter 1279. Uncle Zhang took the card from Shui Ying's hand in a fluster and heard Shui Ying's words. Compared to the dead Tai Jingang, the appearance of Shuang, Lin Wei, and the rest was more frightening. Because they had guns in their hands. More importantly, they were more powerful than Tai Jingang. Most importantly, Tai Jingang was so powerful. He was actually killed by Yunjian from their class. He was actually killed by killing God from the advanced special forces. In the past, they had only heard of killing God's prestige, but today, everyone present had witnessed killing God's ability. That was beyond what a person should be capable of. What Shuang said at the end made everyone present even more stunned. 10 million USD. 10 million USD for hush money. Did his family own a bank? How could he give out 10 million USD at once? USD. The surrounding students were all stunned. Qi Xiaoxiao's eyes widened in shock. Shuang was the subordinate of the handsome man just now. Even if it was his subordinate, the hush money would be 10 million US dollars. Her boyfriend Lin Zihang's total assets were at most 1/10 of 10 million USD. Qi Xiaoxiao recalled how she had bragged about bringing Lin Zihang to Yunjian and the rest and felt that she had been stupid back then. Her boyfriend gave 10 million USD as hush money. What about her boyfriend? Qi Xiaoxiao instantly despised Lin Zihang. After Uncle Zhang accepted the 10 million USD, Shui Ying's sharp eyes scanned the scene. Although he was handsome and cheerful, the deep scar on his neck made him look ferocious. Therefore, the people standing around didn't dare to step forward. Shuang smiled ferociously and purposely made the people around him shudder. Then, he fiddled with the gun in his hand and said, "Today, I was planning to kill all of you." Hearing Shui Ying's words and recalling the massacre just now, everyone trembled. However, on account of young madam, I won't kill you. But remember, if anyone dares to say a word about what happened today. Shuang continued. Before he could finish his sentence, the sound of a gunshot reverberated through the sky. Shuang grabbed a pistol and fired a shot into the sky without even looking. After that, Shuang curled his lips. This is the outcome. According to Enhun's rules, they were supposed to kill all the witnesses. However, if all of Yunjian's classmates were killed, it would definitely cause a commotion in Longmen City. Initially, it would not affect Enhun group at all whether it caused a commotion or not, but the problem was that Yunjian was still living in Longmen City. Yunjian's family had settled down in Longmen City as well. At this moment, Yunjian had already been dragged to the Lamborghini by CE. Aren't we going to wait for them? Yunjian asked softly as CE dragged her to the Lamborghini. After asking, she paused for a moment before continuing, wait a moment, I'll go say goodbye to Cindy. As Yunjian spoke, she wanted to let go of CE's hand that was holding her. Being around CE made her blush and her heart race. No need to say goodbye. Shuang will do it for you. CE did not loosen his grip on Yunjian's hand. In the next second, he pulled her into the passenger seat of the Lamborghini and drove Yunjian back to Yunjian's house. Yunjian blinked and caught a glimpse of CE's mesmerizing face from the corner of her eye. A small smile spread across her face. Just as Yunjian smiled at CE, she heard him say, "You're going to the International Underground Tea Party in 3 days." It was not a question, it was an affirmation. Yunjian was stunned. She remembered that she had not told CE that she was going to the tea party. In spite of it, Yunjian nodded. She knew that CE had never attended such places. Shuang had always been the one to attend any of Enhun Group's events. CE had never shown his face. Having known CE for so long, Yunjian could roughly guess that he did not like to attend such events. That was why she did not tell CE back then. She thought that CE would not go. Chapter 1280. Yunjian knew that CE didn't like to attend such grand events, so she didn't ask him to come along. When she heard CE's last sentence, Yunjian felt a warmth in her heart. She was silent for 2 seconds before she said to CE, "I know you don't like to go to such events, so you don't have to deliberately accompany me." She knew that CE didn't like such events, so Yunjian didn't want CE to do something he didn't like. She was very clear about her feelings now. She could even say out loud that she liked him. She liked him a lot. It was also because of this that Yunjian didn't want CE to forcefully accompany her to places he didn't want to go. If CE didn't mean anything to her, Yunjian wouldn't have said such things. In Yunjian's heart, she actually wanted CE to attend the event with her. Yunjian's gaze was fixed in front of her. The car was moving forward slowly. The windows were closed, and the interior of the car was cold. After she said this, she didn't hear CE's voice for a long time. Yunjian paused. She was about to turn to look at CE. Screech, there was an emergency braking sound. Yunjian's eyes met the car's. In the next moment, the car came to a stop along the road like a flash of lightning. This was done in a single night. In the next moment, Yunjian felt herself being embraced by a firm chest. Yunjian was stunned for 2 seconds as she felt this firm chest embrace her. CE suddenly reached out from the driver's seat and half-hugged Yunjian. His fresh and pleasant scent wafted into Yunjian's nose. Yunjian subconsciously reached out to hug him back. She only felt a warmth in her heart. This strange and touching heartbeat sounded again. At this moment, CE's magnetic voice came from above Yunjian's head. "No matter how much I dislike the occasion, as long as I'm with you, I like it." He didn't shout these words loudly, nor did he act like a teenage boy and girl who wanted everyone to know about their sweetness. CE only spoke his truest thoughts in the right place, in the right situation. Just like that, like a normal conversation. However, it was CE's truest thoughts that made Yunjian's heart thump. Yunjian's heart trembled slightly. She could feel her heart beating wildly. What CE said made her heart flutter, or perhaps she was touched. You was all Yunjian could say before she was rendered speechless. After a few seconds of silence, she asked a rather dumb question, "Why are you so nice to me?" This question was rather stupid. Perhaps it was because Yunjian didn't know what to say at this moment, so her brain short-circuited and she asked such a question. Yunjian regretted it the moment she finished speaking. Was she stupid or something? How could she ask such a stupid question? However, just as Yunjian asked this question, CE suddenly reached out and placed his hand on the back of Yunjian's head. With one hand on the back of Yunjian's head, he lowered his head. Yunjian could only feel an overwhelming kiss coming down on her. Her lips were suddenly blocked by an ice-cold pair of handsome lips. His handsome lips didn't linger on Yunjian's lips for too long. It was almost like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water against Yunjian's lips. Then, Yunjian saw CE's fair and flawless handsome face. Chapter 1281. CE's words were easily misunderstood and Yunjian's cheeks flushed instantly. Drive. My mom made dumplings. Let's go home for dinner. Yunjian gave the playful CE a shove. She had tacitly agreed to let CE accompany her to the tea party. Moreover, there was a hint of womanly vibe in her tone when she said that. It tickled CE's heart again. The woman he had been longing for was right in front of him, but all he could do was watch and drink without getting to know her better. It was a really suffocating feeling. Whenever CE recalled how Mo Sen had interrupted his and Yunjian's moment back in Yulong mainland, CE would feel suffocated. Yunjian, who sat beside CE, waved her hand gently in front of CE's eyes and said with a press of lips, "Let's drive. My mom said this morning that we should go home for dumplings." Qin Yiru called everyone to her house, planning to make a pot of dumplings tonight and have dinner together as a group. Gu Junjian happened to be here today as well. It was only then that CE reluctantly shifted his gaze away from Yunjian and gripped the steering wheel to start the sports car's engine. Home. As for his Xiao Jian, there was still a long way to go. One day, he would get to know her better. Gu Yunjian's house. Qin Yiru was extremely busy. Without Lan Su's help, Qin Yiru had no helper as well. When Lan Su was still around, Lan Su would often follow Qin Yiru around and let Qin Yiru teach her all sorts of things. For example, making dumplings. There were a lot of dumplings to be made tonight. With Lan Su's help in the past, Qin Yiru was always faster. Today, it was basically Qin Yiru cutting the celery and meat fillings herself before wrapping the dumplings. Si Luo was already at Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru's house. Shuang had sent her over. She sat alone in the living room, looking a little scared. The water in the kitchen was boiling and Qin Yiru could not pull her hands away, so she asked Si Luo, who was sitting in the living room, gently, "Girl, can you do me a favor?" Si Luo looked over when she saw that Qin Yiru was calling her and nodded at Qin Yiru submissively. "Can you help me pour the boiling water into the kettle?" Qin Yiru smiled at Si Luo, her hands never stopping working. Si Luo ran over to help when she. By the time Yunjian and Ce got home, Shuang and Lin Wei were already back. Mo Sen, who had gone out for a walk, came back as well. Qin Yu, Gu Nianji, Yun Yi, and the rest were all home. Qin Yiru had set up a huge round table for everyone to sit at. Xiao Yunju, Gu Nianji, and Gu Junjian were already seated at the round table. Just as Yunjian and Ce sat down, Qin Yiru brought out bowls of dumplings from the kitchen and placed them in front of their seats. Be careful, it's hot. Eat slowly. Qin Yiru smiled and walked to the kitchen. Qin Yiru had just turned around when Shuang called out to her, "Auntie, where's Si Luo? Why don't I see her?" Shuang had arranged for Si Luo to stay at Qin Yiru's house in the afternoon, so she naturally had to ask now that she was nowhere to be seen. That good child. She's helping me in the kitchen. It's all thanks to her this afternoon, or else I wouldn't have been able to handle it alone. Si Luo is such a good child. Look, the good child is here. Qin Yiru said happily and even pointed at the girl who was walking over from afar. Si Luo carried a bowl of dumplings and placed it in front of Shuang. She then took 2 steps back. This child's background is quite pitiful. Both her parents are dead. Why don't we let this child follow me from now on? I'm bored at home anyway, so this child can have a home. What do you think? Qin Yiru said what she had thought of earlier. Chapter 1282. The meaning behind that statement was self-explanatory. Qin Yiru understood at once and told Shuang with a sudden realization, Okay, Auntie understands. Qin Yiru snickered as she spoke. Actually, I don't have to trouble you. Si Luo was still a little afraid of Shuang, so she spoke up. As she spoke, Si Luo recalled Shuang's sudden disapproval when she wanted to stay with Qin Yu. Si Luo turned to Yunjian immediately and asked Yunjian for help, "Can I stay at your house?" Si Luo did not know that Yunjian was not staying at Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru's house. She only knew that Yunjian had the final say here. She was dragged away by Shuang before she could ask for help the last time. She did not want to stay with Shuang anymore because he was too scary, especially that scar on his neck. You can ask him. If he agrees, I don't mind. Yunjian smirked and hinted at Shuang before speaking to Si Luo. Asking Shuang to agree. Wasn't that the same as not asking at all? Si Luo paused. She was a girl, so why could she not stay with Qin Yu? Si Luo could not understand. Don't even think about it. As expected, Shuang dismissed Si Luo's idea decisively. The reunion dinner was very, very enjoyable. Only Si Luo pouted, but she had a great time eating as well. Halfway through the meal, Gu Junjian told Yunjian, "Get ready. You'll have to pack up and report to the military school in 2 days." Yunjian looked up when she heard Gu Junjian, but Gu Junjian continued to explain. Freshmen in the military school start at a different time from regular high schools. Freshmen in regular high schools usually report to school a week earlier and go through a week of military training. However, the military school's military training lasts for a month, so you have to report to school in early August. You'll be in the military school for the next month, then you'll start classes like regular high schools in September. Gu Junjian explained to Yunjian in detail. Gu Junjian then turned to Ce. Since you're enrolled in the military school, you're in your senior year and you don't have to go through military training. That's because the military school is closed. Which means that you can't visit her during the month of military training. These matters had to be handled according to the military school's rules. Even if Ce's identity was extraordinary, Gu Junjian meant that Ce had to bear with it for a month without seeing Yunjian since he had said it out loud. Okay, Ce agreed without hesitation. He had agreed to it directly because he wanted to see Xiao Jian. Who could stop him? Gu Junjian meant that he could not meet Xiao Jian openly. Who could stop him from seeing her secretly? Got it. Yunjian nodded. Yunjian's skills were improving in actual combat, but she knew that she was still not strong enough. She was not as capable as she was in her past life, but she was not far from it. Yunjian would not let go of any chance to improve her skills. Military training was excruciating to others, but to her, it was something she could not ask for more. Dinner was over quickly and Qin Yiru cleared the table quickly. Si Luo helped to clean up the table the entire time. Si Luo was a deft girl. After the meal, everyone went back to their own homes. The tea party was held 3 days later, so Yunjian planned to depart early the next morning. At night, Shuang pulled Si Luo back to his place with a grim expression. Chapter 1283. Before Si Luo could finish her sentence, Shuang interrupted her. Are you afraid of me? As Shuang spoke, he took a step closer to her and spoke in a muffled voice. Shuang felt very anxious now. He really wanted to grab this stupid woman and give her a good scolding, but he couldn't bear to do it. Si Luo saw Shuang take another step closer to her, and she took another step back in fear. Then, her hands hung by the sides of her pants. She shrank her head and glanced at the ground beside her. I'm not. You're not. Shuang repeated. At the same time, he stood in front of Si Luo again. Shuang reached out and pinched Si Luo's chin, forcing her to look at him. At this moment, Shuang was already standing next to Si Luo. Shuang could even smell the mint fragrance coming from her body. Si Luo was about to cry. She was really afraid of Shuang. Especially the long scar on Shuang's neck. What kind of injury could leave such a deep scar on his face? Look at me. If you're not afraid of me, then look at me and tell me that you're not afraid of me. Shuang pinched Si Luo's chin and forced her to look at him. He was a little impatient, but he didn't want to hurt her, so he pretended to be fierce and shouted. Sob sob, I. Si Luo was frightened by the snow eagle's aura. She shuddered, then shrank back. Shuang got angrier the more he looked at her, especially when he smelled the minty scent on Si Luo's body. He then looked at Si Luo's beautiful eyes with long eyelashes. Shuang reached out his free hand. It looked as if he wanted to slap her. Si Luo suddenly remembered that she was beaten up when she was begging. She shrank back in fear and closed her eyes. Tears even came out of her eyes as she screamed. Ah! Don't hit me, please don't hit me. I'll be good, boo-hoo. Shuang was stunned by Si Luo's reaction. After he recovered from his shock, he reached out his free hand and pressed the back of Si Luo's head, pulling her head towards him. In the next second, Shuang kissed Si Luo on the lips. Si Luo thought that Shuang was going to hit her, but he actually kissed her. Si Luo's eyes widened. Si Luo was dumbfounded. Shuang didn't kiss her for too long. After he kissed her, he immediately realized his mistake, so he quickly moved his lips away. Shuang punched the wall next to Si Luo as he recalled what he had just done. The hand slammed down hard, and even the white powder on the wall fell down. Si Luo shrank back in fear and covered her face with her hands. Si Luo only opened her eyes when she didn't hear anything after a while. She then saw Shuang looking at her with his dark eyes. She shrunk her neck, trembling. At this moment, Si Luo could see the scar on Shuang's neck up close. Those were terrifying scars intertwined together, revealing a huge scar. Just looking at it from such a close distance was enough to frighten people. Si Luo shrank back again, and her hand couldn't help but caress the terrifying scar on Shuang's neck. Si Luo was scared to death. She wanted to hide in fear, but when she saw the terrifying scar on Shuang's neck, she couldn't help but feel sorry for him. You! Does it hurt? Si Luo asked. Her face was filled with sadness. Si Luo was a very pure girl. She didn't even know what it meant when Shuang licked her lips a few times. Shuang immediately grabbed Si Luo's wrist when he heard what she said. He curled his lips and smiled at her. Are you worried about me? No, If your family saw you injured like this, they would be very sad. Si Luo frowned as she looked at the scar on Shuaying's neck. He must have been in a lot of pain when he was injured so deeply. I don't have any family. Shuaying's expression changed at the mention of family. As he spoke, he didn't stop what he was doing, but his expression became more ferocious. If it weren't for this deep scar, Shuaying's looks would only be slightly less handsome than Si Yi's. After a pause, Shuang said harshly, if it weren't for my family and name, I wouldn't have this scar and been ridiculed since I was young. Shuaying's words were harsh, but they touched Si Luo's heart. Tears streamed down Si Luo's face when she heard what Shuang said. Chapter 1284. Si Luo started crying without warning after hearing Shuaying's words. Shuang panicked when he saw that. He hurriedly wiped Si Luo's tears away. To be honest, it was Shuaying's first time wiping away a girl's tears. He used to hate girls who cried so easily. However, Si Luo gave him a different feeling. For some reason, Shuang panicked when he saw Si Luo's tears. It was as if something precious to him was crying. Furthermore, the girl's minty scent wafted into his nose. Shuang felt like he was going to be possessed. Shuang couldn't help but reach out to remove Si Luo's hand that was rubbing his eyes. He used his other hand to gently wipe away the tears at the corner of her eyes. Shuang panicked when he saw Si Luo's tears streaming down her face. What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Shuaying's question made Si Luo cry even harder. Si Luo wanted to hold back her tears, but she couldn't no matter how hard she tried. She sobbed to Shuang. You. Why are you so pitiful? Don't your family want you anymore? Was your injury caused by them? It must hurt a lot, right? As Si Luo spoke, she reached out her delicate hand and gently placed it on Shuaying's neck. Although she was afraid of the frightening scar on his neck, she still held back her tears as she asked, "What's wrong with you?" Si Luo wasn't faking it. A truly sad person's eyes couldn't be so pure. It was Shuaying's first time seeing such a crybaby girl. At first, she was afraid of him and wanted to shrink away. She didn't want to go home with him and wanted to cry. Now that she had heard a bit of her tragic past, she couldn't stop her tears from flowing. Shuang didn't know how to comfort her. He hugged Si Luo in his arms and gently stroked Si Luo's back. It doesn't hurt anymore. Don't cry. Si Luo's heart skipped a beat when Shuang suddenly hugged her. She really stopped crying. However, this feeling was new to her. Si Luo had never gone to school. She was adopted by her foster parents since she was young and was locked up at home to do manual labor. No one taught her, so she didn't even know the difference between boys and girls. But at this moment, Si Luo stopped crying. She raised her hand but didn't know where to put it. She stood rooted to the ground, stunned. No one had ever hugged her like this since she was young. When she was young, everyone would only beat her and scold her. Regardless of whether it was the children or the adults, they all despised her. They said that she often did manual labor, was dirty, and had bacteria all over her body. No one was even willing to approach her. Si Luo was completely stunned. Shuang had never thought that he would actually hug her. But the faint scent of mint wafted from the girl's body, and Shuang couldn't bear to let go. No one knew what was happening here. At this moment, Yunjian and Ce were sleeping on the same bed, but nothing happened. With the person he loved sleeping beside him, Ce only touched Yunjian for a while but did not do anything excessive. Yunjian and Ce went to bed early because they were preparing to leave for the tea party the next day. Yunjian and Ce woke up early the next morning. Qingyu was going to go with Yunjian as well. Gu Nianji was left behind in Longmen City by Qingyu. As for Lin Wei and Nemo Sen, they were sent back to an Hun group by Ce. Shuang went with Ce. Yunjian had just woken up when Yunyi called her to the garden outside the villa. Yunjian knew that Yunyi had come because Qingyu was going on a long trip with her. As expected, Yunyi looked at Yunjian and asked, "Xiao Jian, where are you guys going?" Yunjian only said that she was going out but did not say where. Yunjian's gaze dimmed. She blinked at Yunyi but did not elaborate. "Go, we'll be back soon." "Xiao Jian," Yunyi suddenly cut Yunjian off. He was silent for a while and hesitated. Chapter 1285. Yunyi thought about it for a long time before he finally decided to ask the question. He had been wanting to ask for a long time about whether Yunjian was his biological sister. It had been almost a year. It had been almost a year since his little sister had changed until today. What was his sister like in the past? She was timid, weak, and useless. But what about his sister now? Her brilliance was dazzling and her ability was terrifying. Even everything that happened after that. In the beginning, Yunyi thought that his sister had changed and that she was just hiding her timid and weak personality. However, Yunjian's actions later made Yunyi deeply suspicious. However, because Yunjian's appearance did not change, Yunyi did not have any suspicions at first. However, until today, they had been together for almost a year. No matter how much a person's personality changed, it was impossible for it to change so drastically. Initially, Yunyi wanted to wait for Yunjian to tell him herself. However, he could not wait any longer. Yunjian was stunned by Yunyi's sudden question. Looking at Yunyi's questioning gaze, Yunjian pursed her lips. She had never hidden herself in front of Yunyi and Qin Yiro because Yunjian did not plan to do so from the beginning. As long as Yunyi and Qin Yiro asked her, she planned to tell Yunyi the truth. However, looking at Yunyi's nervous face, Yunjian felt that she was wrong. Perhaps she did not really see Yunyi and Qin Yiro as her family in the beginning, so she was not afraid in the beginning. She even thought that if her identity as Yunjian was not exposed, she could just leave. Slaying God had always been a homeless person who could live anywhere she wanted. She lived a carefree life and was never tied down by the world. However, Yunjian had never thought that she would be tied down by the word family with Yunyi and Qin Yiru. Therefore, the more she did not want to say that she was not Yunjian. However, when the day came, Yunyi still asked. Yunjian lowered her eyes. Finally, under Yunyi's questioning, she looked up and said to Yunyi openly, "Yes, I'm not your biological sister, Yunjian." She did not plan to lie again. If Yunyi found out and hated her, if Yunyi found out and told Qin Yiru the truth and chased her away, she would leave with Xiao Yunzhu immediately. She, Yunjian, was not someone who could not let go. Seeing Yunjian confess so openly, Yunyi felt like he was struck by lightning. He was stupefied. Even when he was mentally prepared when he asked the question, he was still stupefied when he actually heard it. "You're not Xiao Jian. Then where did my real sister go? Why are you here? To replace my sister's identity?" Yunyi asked a series of questions. Yunyi paused in the end and his voice sounded calm, but if one were to listen closely, one could hear the raspiness and uncontrollable tremor in Yunyi's voice. There was a pause before Yunyi asked the last question. Then, Who are you? Yunyi's emotions were like a roller coaster right now. His heart was clenched tightly. He had grown up with his little sister, and he had become a completely different person. Those who had never experienced this would not be able to understand this feeling. Chapter 1286. Yunjian opened her mouth. Every word that came out of her mouth made Yun-yi tremble violently. At this moment, Yunjian paused for a moment before she continued. Yes, I'm not your biological sister. I'm an underground agent who kills without batting an eyelid. The person standing in front of you is not your biological sister, nor is she some spoiled daughter of a rich family. She's just an underground agent who stepped on countless corpses and barely managed to survive through life and death situations. She's the top wanted criminal of the 3S level Interpol. At the end of her speech, Yun Jian even used an outsider's tone to tell Yun-yi her identity in full detail. No one knew better than herself how much ability and courage it took to survive in an assassin organization like Enhun. She wished so much that she was just an ordinary junior high school student, with a brother who doted on her, just like Yun-yi, and a mother who loved her, just like Qin Yiru. Outsiders respected her, only because they saw her strength. But to be honest, she didn't even have the right to choose whether to live or die back then. She couldn't be like an ordinary junior high school student, who could decide her future through exams like middle school and college entrance exams. She also couldn't be like an ordinary student, who could choose her future career after finishing high school and college. Yun Jian had lived in a world of swords and blood since she was young. She didn't have the right to choose her career. She didn't even have the right to choose whether to live or die. She could only rely on her own two hands. She could only use her own two hands to kill everyone who stood in her way, and then fight for the right to live. This was her life, and also her childhood. Outsiders only saw their glamorous, cool, and terrifying killing skills. But who could have seen how she had survived the massacre? So after she was reborn, she came to an ordinary living environment, an ordinary family, and an ordinary school life. She was greedy. Just like how many people who didn't know her world wanted to explore her world and her living environment, she also wanted to experience the life of an ordinary person. When Yun Jian said that she was an agent of an international underground organization, Yun Yi's heart trembled. He didn't expect that the person in front of him wasn't his sister, but such a terrifying existence in the world. But after listening to Yun Jian's words, Yun Yi could even feel the loneliness in Yun Jian's words. She had no one to rely on and no one to rely on. To Yun-yi, the memories of a year with Yun Jian were more than 10 years' worth of memories with him and his sister. Even after knowing the truth, Yun-yi still felt that Yun Jian was his biological sister. He clenched his fists, but Yun Jian was already speaking to him in a normal tone. When I woke up, I possessed your sister's body. I don't know whether your sister is still alive or not, and I don't know where she went, but I can guarantee with my integrity that I have never harmed you or Mom. Yun Jian's words touched Yun Yi's heart. Yun-yi shook his head abruptly and quickly told Yun Jian, No, Xiao Jian, I'm not afraid that you'll hurt me and Mom. I just want to know the truth. Yun-yi paused before he told Yun Jian seriously, Xiao Jian, whether you're my biological sister or not, I've already treated you as one in my heart. Chapter 1287. Yun Yi's words touched Yun Jian. It was an experience she had never experienced before. Yun Jian nodded heavily looking at Yun Yi. She did not expect Yun Yi to say something so touching. Yun Jian never shed tears, but there was a glint at the corner of her eyes now. Of course, it was just a flash. No matter how shaken Yun Jian was, she would never shed tears in front of others. Alright, Xiao Jian, aren't you guys going somewhere? You should leave now. Yun-yi was no longer as hesitant as before now that everything was out in the open. Although his younger sister's whereabouts were unknown, there was nothing he could do, so he let it go, but he would never give up. When Yunjian saw Yun-yi suddenly opening his mouth to smile at her in an attempt to lighten the tense atmosphere, she regained her usual emotions. Go, I'll leave first, Yunjian turned to tell Yun-yi before she walked out of the parterre. Okay. Yun-yi nodded. Yun-yi then thought of something and stopped Yunjian. Xiao Jian, I won't object to where you guys are going, but I only have one request. You guys must go there safely and come back in one piece. Yun-yi's words tugged at Yunjian's heartstrings. Yun-yi was not worried about anything else. He was only concerned about Yunjian and the other's safety. This touched Yunjian, so she looked at Yun-yi and nodded. Go, I promise you. No matter what happens in the future, I'll come back alive. Yun-yi did not ask her where she was going or what she was going to do. He never asked about it, but he was essentially the same as Qin Yiru. They only wanted Yunjian to be safe. When Yunjian came out of the parterre, Cee was leaning against the Lamborghini sports car with his back against it. He was leaning his legs against the short Lamborghini sports car leisurely. His tall and lean figure was handsome no matter how one looked at it. He watched as Yunjian walked toward him. Why were you gone for so long? Cee asked softly when Yunjian came to him, holding Yunjian's hand as he spoke. I talked to Go for a while. Yunjian smiled at Cee with her eyes crinkled. Now that she had both kinship and love, this was the life she had yearned for in her previous life. Cee did not probe further. He patted Yunjian's head softly with his large hand and pulled Yunjian into the car. Other than Cee and Yunjian, Shuang and Qing Yu were also there. Shuang reluctantly left Si Luo at Qin Yiru's house. Before he left, he reminded Si Luo that he would pick him up when he returned. He was afraid that Si Luo would stay at Qin Yiru's house and refuse to leave. Every international underground tea party was very dangerous. Even if the people who rushed to participate were not powerful secret agents or killers, they were still well-known figures in the world. Some minor assassins and secret agents would attend as well. Of course, these people did not have any status. Most of the time, they were directly ignored. When they arrived at the airport, Cee parked the Lamborghini at the management area and the four of them boarded the plane to Country B. Every year, the tea party would be held in a country with the poorest economy in the world. War could break out in that kind of country at any time. Of course, if one had to ask why, it was because in a prosperous country, something unpleasant would always happen at the gathering of assassins and secret agents. When the time came, if someone killed someone, or if someone killed someone with a bomb or a cannon, no one would care in a poor country. This was exactly what they wanted. Chapter 1288. Country B, Kaluki. Just as they got off the plane, Yunjian and Cee felt the fundamental difference between Country B and Country Z. In short, Country B's economy was more backward. The average income per capita was not high and most of the people were black. Although the income was not high and the country was in dire straits, the people of Country B lived in harmony. Their lives were tough and they might only live in straw huts. Changing their beds every 10 years was something only the wealthiest family in the village could do. In Country B, however, everyone helped each other. Money was paramount, but sometimes, no amount of money could make up for a favor. Just as Yunjian, Cee, Shuang, and Qing Yu got off the plane, they saw Country B's people working hard on the streets, helping each other to move fruit trees. Some of the women in Country B wore headscarves while others did not. In Country B, women did not have the rule that they had to wrap themselves up completely before they could go out. In some countries, women's social status was so low that young girls had to wrap themselves up completely, only showing their eyes when they could go out. Of course, this did not exist in Country B. Yunjian, Qingyu, and the rest were Asian. They were not white, but they were not tanned either. Their skin was just right. Of course, walking among the crowd in Country B, Yunjian, Qingyu, and the rest attracted a lot of attention. Even so, no Country B's people would greet them. Sister Jian, Master sent me the address. She's not here yet. She wants us to go over first and stay at the host's guest house, Qingyu told Yunjian after receiving Snake Lizard's message. Qingyu was discovered by Snake Lizard and the Kosha mercenaries, and her poison skills were personally taught by Snake Lizard. Therefore, the master Qingyu mentioned was Snake Lizard. Okay. Yunjian nodded. Then, the group went to the guest house they had agreed on. The guest house was provided by the organizer of the underground tea party. Yunjian, CE, and the rest arrived 2 days early as the tea party would only begin 2 days later. Therefore, Yunjian, CE, and the others could stay in the guest house provided by the organizers. After all, in a destitute country like Country B, there was not even a hotel, let alone a place to stay. This guest house was a very high-class temporary apartment built by the organizers. Of course, the organizers also spent some time building this apartment. After all, this apartment was built according to the structure of a 5-star hotel. The interior decoration and soundproofing were definitely top-notch. As soon as they entered the guest house, a receptionist standing at the front desk handed Yunjian and the others the keys to 4 rooms. The people who attended this gathering were all internationally famous people, so Yunjian and the other 3 didn't even need to reveal their identities at the front desk to get the keys to the apartment. Of the 4 rooms, only 3 were needed. CE didn't even go to his room. Instead, he shamelessly went to Yunjian's room. The apartments here also provided hot springs. The service could be considered top-notch. Yunjian, on the other hand, wanted to take a bath. The hot springs here were separated for men and women. Without Yunjian by his side, CE had no interest in the hot springs at all. Yunjian changed into a swimsuit and a conservative bathrobe over it before going to the hot springs for women. Chapter 1289. Yunjian was also very clear that the people who could come to this public women's hot spring must be insignificant. It was impossible for ordinary big shots to come here to soak in the public hot spring. Of course, Yunjian was not excluded. But this was also one of the points that Yunjian was better than other big shots. She never treated herself as a big shot. It could be said that Yunjian would usually blend into the ordinary crowd first and then find out the details of some people in the crowd. For example, coming to the hot spring was the best place to find out the details. Of course, the most important reason was that Yunjian tried to find out something that she should not know from others. Back to the topic, Yunjian had already arrived at the public women's hot spring with her bathrobe. As soon as she walked into the public women's hot spring, she saw the vast hot spring in front of her. The hot spring covered a large area, about the size of 5 or 6 ordinary classrooms in a school. The hot spring was not purely natural, but man-made. Of course, all the investment was provided by the organizers. And all the high-end equipment here was only to entertain the big shots from all over the world. There were already many people soaking in the hot spring, and this place was exclusively for women. Yunjian's appearance quickly attracted the attention of many women present. After all, Yunjian's looks were stunning even if she did not wear any makeup. Of course, the women in the hot spring came from all over the world and various countries. Some countries had different aesthetic standards, so Yunjian was only the center of attention for a while, and the women quickly looked away. Yunjian took off her bathrobe and revealed her swimsuit. Her sexy and curvy figure was vividly displayed. After Yunjian took off her bathrobe, she put it away and went into the hot spring. There were at least a dozen hot springs here, and Yunjian only picked one that was more pleasing to the eye. As soon as she went into the water, 5 or 6 women immediately surrounded Yunjian. Yunjian lowered her eyes and pretended not to see. One of the women stood in front of Yunjian. She pointed at Yunjian with a murderous look on her face. Then she said to Yunjian in English, "This hot spring belongs to Sister Sheena. I'll give you 3 seconds to get out of this hot spring, or you'll die here." Saying so, the 5 to 6 women formed eagle claws with their hands, each of them unleashed their killer moves at Yunjian. Yunjian narrowed her eyes. She still didn't move. His initial judgment was that these women were all low-level assassins or secret agents. This was not Country Z, and the women in front of her were not trying to intimidate her. Killing people was a very common thing for everyone here. Therefore, after these 5 or 6 women surrounded Yunjian, all the women who were soaking in the hot spring looked at Yunjian as if they were looking at a dead person. They seemed to be waiting to see Yunjian being torn to pieces by these 5 or 6 women. Hey, Maggie, this is my friend. Save me some face and don't kill her. She's a little immature. I apologize. Yunjian was still soaking in the hot spring. The 5 or 6 women surrounded Yunjian and were already planning to attack Yunjian, who was not moving. The people here were very realistic. What should they do to disobedient people? Then they would use death as a warning. At this moment, a woman in her 20s ran over from not far away. She walked over and grabbed Yunjian. She apologized to the leader of the 5 or 6 women and dragged Yunjian to another hot spring. Yunjian did not refuse. She did not intend to expose her identity. Until the woman in her 20s, who looked quite sweet, pulled Yunjian to another hot spring, the woman breathed a sigh of relief. Then she smiled at Yunjian and said, "My name is Doya, and my Chinese name is Gasiki. I see that you're also from Country Z, right? You don't know, but the identities of those people just now are shocking. They even know the middle-level personnel of the Kosha mercenaries. You can't afford to offend them. Phew, luckily, I pulled you back in time. Otherwise, you're really done for. You'll definitely be killed by them." Doya breathed a sigh of relief. Then she introduced herself to Yunjian and explained the situation just now. Chapter 1290. Doya turned her gaze to Yunjian after that. Just as Doya was about to say something, Yunjian thanked Doya. "Thank you." Doya grinned at Yunjian's gratitude before waving a hand at her. "Ha, it's no big deal. We're all from Country Z after all." Doya then moved closer to Yunjian and pointed at a few women in a hot spring. She then said to Yunjian, "Let's sneak over there. Let's sneak over there. Those are my friends. Shoo, lower your voice. Don't let Maggie and the others see us." Maggie was the leader of the group that surrounded Yunjian with 5 or 6 women. It seemed that Doya was quite afraid of Maggie and the others. Yunjian knew that Doya had pulled her to another hot spring just now to avoid Magi and the rest's line of sight. Doya noticed that Maggie and the others were no longer looking at her and Yunjian. She then decided to bring Yunjian back to her friends. "Okay." Yunjian naturally didn't refuse. "Then let's go." Doya pulled Yunjian's hand and ran to the hot spring where her friends were like a big sister avoiding the attention of Maggie and the others. Yunjian followed Doya's footsteps the entire time. At this critical moment, if Yunjian or Doya made any noise, Maggie and the others would come looking for trouble again. This was the bloody world that Yunjian lived in her previous life. People with power and authority would rush up and kill whoever they didn't like or tease them before humiliating them to death. Therefore, even if Doya had saved Yunjian from Maggie just now, there was no telling if Maggie and the other women would make a comeback. Doya heaved a sigh of relief when she brought Yunjian to the hot spring where she and her friends were. Doya, you really saved this girl. One of Doya's friends said lazily as Doya pulled Yunjian into the hot spring. Yunjian immediately looked up and saw a woman whose breasts were so big that even her swimsuit couldn't cover them. She was looking at her with her arms crossed. You can't even take care of yourself and you still want to save others. Doya, do you know how dangerous it was just now? Maggie and the others aren't simple people. Especially Hina. Hina's old flame is from the Inhun organization. Most importantly, they know people from the Kosha mercenaries. Also, I heard that even the boss of the Western Underground black market owes Hina a favor. A woman in a bikini started scolding Doya after the woman with the big breasts finished speaking. They were a group of low-level assassins who couldn't afford to offend anyone, because it would bring about a fatal disaster. Among all the people present, Hina, who was the sister Hina that Maggie mentioned, was the one with the highest status. Therefore, every woman in the hot spring was in awe of Hina. Before Yunjian came, Hina killed a woman like Yunjian who everyone thought was self-righteous. Doya's friends thought that saving Yunjian from Hina's follower Maggie was a very risky thing to do. Doya waved her hand and smiled before her friend finished speaking. It's fine. Maggie owes me a favor. I was very safe just now. With that, Doya lowered her voice and told the group with a pat on Yunjian's shoulder. Besides, I don't want to see such a pretty girl get killed by those people. Chapter 1291. Yunjian didn't say anything. She quietly listened to the people in front of her talking about how Doya saved her. After listening to their conversation, Yunjian could already conclude that Doya was the kindest among them. However, her kind personality wasn't suitable for this path. If Doya continued to maintain her kind heart, Yunjian was sure that she would lose her life one day because of her kindness. Doya, we don't want to see any killing or death. However, your actions not only put you in danger, but if Hina intervened, we would all die here. It's true that you saved this little girl, but you should think about it carefully. We're assassins, not charity workers. The big-breasted woman whose breasts couldn't even be covered by her swimsuit spoke to Doya very seriously. She wasn't targeting Yunjian. Instead, she wanted Doya to see the truth. They weren't strong enough to save anyone now. If Maggie didn't owe Doya a favor just now, not to mention Doya, even Doya's friends would have to die here because of Doya's meddling. Doya was stunned. She couldn't speak for a long time. Finally, Doya was silent for a while. She was about to say, I promise, this is the last time, well said. A clear female voice interrupted Doya's words and reached the ears of Doya and her friends. When Doya and Doya's friends turned to look at the source of the voice, they saw Yunjian leaning leisurely on the shore of the hot spring. She closed her eyes and said those 3 words faintly. Everyone present was stupefied for a moment. Did they hear wrongly? This little girl actually said that she was well said. She said that the big-breasted woman's words were well said. Everyone present was criticizing Doya for saving Yunjian. In the end, the little girl actually agreed with the big-breasted woman's words. Everyone was dumbfounded. If it were anyone else, they would probably be furious after hearing what the big-breasted woman and the woman in the bikini said. After all, the big-breasted woman and the woman in the bikini wanted Doya to not save Yunjian and let Yunjian be killed by Maggie's group. In the eyes of the big-breasted woman and the woman in the bikini, if Doya didn't save Yunjian just now, Yunjian would definitely die. Due to Yun Jian's age and her seemingly ignorant face, everyone felt that she must be a newbie from some assassin or secret agent organization. However, what Yun Jian said surprised everyone. She actually spoke up for the big-breasted woman and the woman in the bikini. Is she stupid? Just as everyone was thinking that, they heard Yun Jian's voice again. Yun Jian's words were directed at Doya. From my point of view, I should be thanking you. However, from the assassin's point of view, your kind actions just now will bring you a fatal disaster sooner or later. She's very right. You're assassins, not charity workers. Yun Jian's simple words made everyone present gulp. No one expected this teenage girl in front of them to have such a deep understanding. Yun Jian didn't give off the feeling of a newbie assassin or secret agent who had just debuted. Instead, it felt like Doya and Doya's friends felt their hearts tighten at this moment. Everyone instantly had an unknown illusion. Chapter 1292. However, everyone quickly dismissed this idea. After all, Yun Jian was still young. She couldn't have started training when she was still in her mother's womb, right? So when they thought of this, they didn't think that Yun Jian was some big shot on the international stage. When the big-breasted woman heard Yun Jian's words, she suddenly liked Yun Jian's character very much. Previously, Yun Jian didn't say anything and Doya's friends obviously didn't know Yun Jian, so they treated Yun Jian like a stranger. However, just now, Yun Jian's words shocked everyone. Doya was also silent for a few seconds. Yun Jian leaned against the shore of the hot spring. She looked at the reactions of the women around her and didn't continue speaking for a while. Until this delicate atmosphere was interrupted when a slender and beautiful hand reached out to Yun Jian. The big-breasted woman reached out to Yun Jian under everyone's gaze. She narrowed her eyes slightly and looked at Yun Jian. That pair of beautiful hands had already reached out to Yun Jian. She said, I said something unpleasant just now. Now, I apologize. I hope you don't mind. Also, my name is Maina. I'm from country M. This big-breasted woman, Maina, intended to bury the hatchet with Yun Jian. From the beginning, she was hostile to Yun Jian, but now, she wanted to be on good terms with Yun Jian. Little girl, your words are quite pleasing to the ears, ha. I was wrong just now. I shouldn't have said that. Let's be friends. My name is Charlotte. I'm from country Y. The woman wearing a very thin bikini also followed the example of the big-breasted woman and apologized to Yun Jian. At the same time, Charlotte also reached out a hand to Yun Jian. When Yun Jian saw this, she only smiled slightly. Then, she shook hands with Maina and Charlotte respectively and nodded to them under the gaze of Maina and Charlotte. Hello, my name is Yun Jian. I'm from country Z. Then, Doya's other friends also introduced themselves to Yun Jian. They were already familiar with each other. Then we're friends, ah. Charlotte smiled at Yun Jian. Maina stood in the middle of the hot spring. She took 2 steps, and her huge breasts trembled. If there was a man here, he would definitely have a nosebleed from the sight of Maina's huge breasts. Since Charlotte said so, Yun Jian didn't hold back. Yun Jian obtained a lot of information from Doya, Maina, and Charlotte. For example, some big and small figures would appear at the tea party 2 days later. When they were about to come out of the shower, Charlotte suddenly grabbed Yun Jian's hand and said to her, Yun Jian, I'm going to take a shower. By the way, Yun Jian, you have to be careful. Don't mess with Hina and Maggie, the group of people you just meshed with. You can't underestimate their status. You have to be careful. Charlotte thought that Yun Jian was just a small assassin or secret agent who had just debuted. Charlotte sincerely treated Yun Jian as a friend, which was why she held Yun Jian's hand and reminded her repeatedly. Charlotte was doing it out of kindness. Yunjian naturally accepted her kindness. Okay, I know. Are you done soaking? We can go back to our rooms now, Charlotte said. Thus, Yunjian and the others put on their bathrobes and planned to go out of the hot spring. Just as they reached the entrance of the hot spring, more than 10 women rushed in from outside. These women took a deep look at Yunjian, and the leader turned her gaze to Maina. Catch her. The leader fiercely ordered the people beside her. Maina didn't even know what was going on, and she was caught by the leader's people. Yunjian narrowed her eyes, but she didn't make a move. Slap. The woman in the lead suddenly gave Maina a slap. Nah. Doya was shocked. She wanted to rush to Maina, but she was stopped by Charlotte. Chapter 1293. It was obvious that Maina did not know the woman who had suddenly asked her men to grab her and slap her. Heh, who am I? I'm the daughter of a European arms family, Mira. The woman who called herself Mira asked her men to grab Maina and gave her a hard slap. She was the daughter of a European arms family. This woman who called herself Mira had a higher status than Hina and was even more difficult to deal with. Doya, Charlotte, and the rest were horrified. Maina was so scared that her whole body trembled. Maina was so scared that she trembled violently. At the same time, the huge cleavage in front of her chest bounced up and down twice. Mira was even angrier when she saw that. Mira lifted her leg and kicked Maina's huge chest hard. She then walked over and pulled Maina's hair. How dare you ask me who I am? My man's soul was hooked when he saw you this morning. I'm here to teach you a lesson today. If I see you again, I'll make sure you die a horrible death. Mira said as she turned around to look at Yunjian, Doya, and the rest like a rich lady. To be honest, Yunjian could attack, but she would expose her identity if she did. Exposing her identity before the tea party would definitely put her in danger. If the identity of Slaying God, the #1 secret agent on the international secret agent ranking, was exposed, it would definitely make the world tremble in fear. There were many people in the world who were afraid of Yunjian. However, there were even more people who wanted Yunjian dead. Therefore, if she exposed her identity now, she would be on the verge of death. After all, she would be staying here for a few days. If she exposed her identity now, she would definitely not be able to stay here anymore. Because at that time, wouldn't there be a lot of people who wanted her dead? She would not even be able to join the tea party this time. Therefore, Yunjian did not attack. She could not be blamed for being selfish. She would not expose herself to death for a friend whom she had only met once. When Mira looked at her, Yunjian's eyelids twitched slightly. The women in the spa watched the scene as if they were watching a show. None of them came to help. Mira's slap on Maina's face was so heavy that it made Maina's mouth bleed. Based on what Mira said, Maina was not wrong at all. That was because Mira's man was attracted by Maina's breasts, but Maina didn't do anything. Even so, Mira could openly beat up Maina, or even kill her. This was the dark world of Yunjian's previous life. If you're weak, don't even talk about reason, you don't even have the right to say no. She's your friend. At this moment, Mira suddenly pinched Maina's chin and turned her head towards Yunjian. When Mira saw Yunjian's beautiful appearance, her jealousy as a woman soared to the extreme. No. No, she's not my friend. Look at how trashy she is. One look and you can tell that she is the weakest person in the circle. How could she be my friend? Maina was stunned. Then, she looked coldly at Yunjian and laughed. Behind her back, Maina was hinting at Charlotte with her eyes, asking the latter to take Yunjian and leave quickly. Miina said those words because she did not want to implicate Yunjian. Yunjian's eyes twitched. She did not expect Miina to say those words to Mira to protect her. If Miina admitted that she was her friend, Mira would definitely shift her attention to her. That way, Miina would not have to suffer. But Miina did not. Hee, is that so? Mira said as she lifted her leg and kicked Miina to the ground. Chapter 1294. Yunjian did not clench her fists nor did she show any signs of worry for Miina. It was because of this that Mira believed that Miina did not know Yunjian. Otherwise, Mira would have found a random reason to drag Yunjian into this. Charlotte, on the other hand, clenched her fists in the dark. She watched her best friend Miina being beaten up by Myra's men, but she could not do anything. They had agreed earlier that if any of them were to get into trouble, they would not step in if they could reduce the damage. Charlotte, Doya, and the rest felt as if their hearts were being pierced by a knife, but they held it in and did not do anything. It would be useless even if Charlotte and Doya did anything. They would only add to the number of injured. Mira, who was standing in front of him, was the daughter of a European military family. Her status was even higher than Hina's. They could not afford to offend her. They were just a group of low-level assassins. They could only accept their fate if they were to encounter someone like Mira who had the same status as them. Yunjian was shocked, but she did not do anything. She did not expect Miina to go to this extent for her. However, if Yunjian was someone who changed her mind because she was touched, she would not be standing here alive right now. There were countless people who wanted to assassinate her and make her reveal her weakness because she was touched. In spite of it, Yunjian had never been fooled. The first condition for her to be ranked as the top international secret agent, slaying God, was that she could not be touched by anyone and forget her original intention. Why? Aren't you guys leaving? Hee, could it be that you are her friends? Is that why you can't bear to leave? Mira noticed that Yunjian and the rest were not leaving. She suddenly laughed out loud and asked sensitively. If that's the case, then this woman lied to me, right? Myra's smiling face fell instantly. Mira suddenly turned around and stepped on Miina's chest. She then stomped her foot on Miina's huge breasts a few times. Doya almost could not stand it. She wanted to rush forward to save Miina. However, Yunjian caught her. If Doya ran over now, it would only add to Mina's punishment. It's just that we haven't seen such an exciting show in a long time, so we couldn't help but take a few more glances, Yunjian said to Mira as if she was an outsider. Mira instantly lost her interest. She glared fiercely at Yunjian, then turned around and ordered her subordinates to leave. Miina was lying on the ground moaning in pain. No one cared about her. After Mira left, Yunjian was the first to walk up. Doya, Charlotte, and the others quickly helped Miina up. Doya, Charlotte, and the others felt as if their hearts were being stabbed by a knife when they saw Miina's injuries. They would only be bullied if they were not strong enough. Fortunately, they were still alive, so they wanted to become strong. I'm sorry. Yunjian told Miina softly as she watched Doya and Charlotte slowly help her up from the ground while squatting on the ground. She was very sorry. She could have stopped it, but she did not. Cough cough. Miina coughed a few times. Then, she forced a pale smile and said to Yunjian, "You little brat, why are you apologizing? This has nothing to do with you. She's just jealous of my breasts, ha." Miina even joked as she shook her huge breasts that were about to jump out of her clothes. Yunjian lowered her eyes and did not say anything. Then, they helped Miina back to her bedroom. Yunjian applied medicine for Miina and then returned to her room. As soon as she entered the room, she saw Ce sitting on the sofa. He was wearing a bathrobe. It seemed like he had just taken a shower in the bathroom. The water on his hair flowed down his neck and into the bathrobe on his firm chest. His fair and handsome face was even more handsome. Chapter 1295. Ce had been sitting on the sofa just now, looking aloof like a handsome man who had walked out of a comic book. His handsome face, coupled with his cold and arrogant face, if women were to see him at this moment, regardless of whether they were old or young, they would probably want to pounce on him fiercely. Yunjian was not an ordinary woman. She sucked in a breath but did not lunge at him like a madwoman. Even if Ce was already Yunjian's favorite in her heart, it was the fondness she had for her beloved. On the other hand, Ce, who had maintained his aloof demeanor just now, stood up and walked over when he saw Yunjian. His aloof demeanor vanished in an instant as he grabbed Yunjian's hand and whispered to her, "Xiao Jian." Her voice was so soft that it was as if she was his master. Ce called out and pulled Yunjian into his arms. Just as he did so, however, Ce's hand accidentally touched the belt of Yunjian's bathrobe. The bathrobe Yunjian was wearing was only held together by the thin strap. This time, Ce had really tugged her belt off by accident. Once the belt was pulled off, Yunjian's bathrobe slid to the floor. Yunjian was wearing a swimsuit underneath that showcased her proud figure. Ce felt like a part of him was swelling violently when he saw what was happening. Xiao Jian. Ce, who was usually calm, was panicking. It was fine if he was not panicking, but once he did, Ce's hand was originally going to rest on Yunjian's slender waist, but it slipped and accidentally landed on Yunjian's butt. The swimsuit that Yunjian was wearing happened to wrap around her buttocks, making it rather sensitive. Yunjian blushed and slapped Ce's hand away, taking 2 steps toward the bed. Halfway there, she turned her head, her blushing cheeks pink as she told Ce coquettishly, "Don't follow me or don't get on my bed." Yunjian only wanted to express that she did not want Ce to come to her room and sleep on the same bed as her. In spite of it, Ce's lips curled up even more when he heard Yunjian's words. The night passed uneventfully. Ce merely hugged Yunjian to sleep, sometimes touching her but never doing the last step. After staying in the guest house for 2 days, the 3rd day of the 3rd underground tea party was held in the morning. August 1, 1999. Yunjian, Ce, Shuang, and Qingyu all woke up early in the morning. The guest house was already filled with people and the tea party was being held in a large ballroom not far from the guest house. Although it was called a ballroom, it was actually a high-class venue that was built at the last minute. The environment was naturally not bad, comparable to the most luxurious villas in country Z. The tea party would be held from morning until 12 o'clock at night, so the tea party was in progress now. Yunjian and Ce went to the ballroom where the tea party was being held. Today, she did not have to hide her identity anymore, because she was leaving after the party today. Just as Yunjian and Ce arrived at the entrance of the ballroom, they heard a blood-curdling scream and saw a large group of people crowding around to watch the show before they even stepped through the entrance. Yunjian could vaguely make out the word "na" in the shrill scream. Her eyelids twitched as she suddenly had a bad feeling. Yunjian quickly pushed through the crowd and saw Mira standing smugly in the middle of the crowd. There was a pool of blood in front of her and a woman who was no longer breathing lay in the pool of blood. The woman's voluptuous breasts had been cut off and lay naked in front of Mira. Chapter 1296. In the beginning, Doya and Charlotte could still pretend that they didn't know Myena like they did 2 days ago. But now, it wasn't as simple as a normal lesson. Myena was killed by Mira. Myena was dead. The reason was because Mira was holding the hand of the man standing beside her and accidentally bumped into them. That man took a few more glances at Mayina's breasts like before. Because of this, Mira ordered someone to humiliate Mayina and cut off her breasts in public. Mayina died on the spot. This was the result of a person without power and influence going up against a person with power and influence. The surrounding people looked at Mayina's disfigured breasts with relish. No one sympathized with Mayina. They even thought that she deserved it. Because Mayina was a weakling. She deserved to die because she was weak. Ah! Ah! You evil woman! You'll die a horrible death. Nah! Nah! Ah! Apart from the others' indifference, Doya and Charlotte had the deepest feelings for Mayina. At this moment, Doya and Charlotte had already roared madly and wanted to rush towards Mira, but they were firmly held back by their other friends. Mira was the strongest here, so if Doya and Charlotte were to charge at Mira without reason, they would be sacrificed for no reason. In this bloody world, if you didn't have power or influence, you could as long as you were strong enough to kill the enemy's army. But if you couldn't and didn't have power or influence, there were many people who would end up as miserable as Mayina, or even more miserable than Mayina. Yo, do you guys want to be played to death by me like this woman? Mira looked at Mayina's breasts that she ordered someone to cut off. She glanced at Doya and Charlotte and said in a sarcastic tone. Mira didn't know what she had done wrong. She raised her leg and stepped on Mayina's chest that had been cut off. Puff 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 puff. The breasts were trampled into paste by Mira in front of everyone. It also took away the last shameful moment in Mayina's life. Blood splattered everywhere. Doya, Charlotte, and the others cried even louder. However, the surrounding people who were watching the show were laughing as if they had seen a perfect show. Some of the men even laughed lecherously and sighed, such a beautiful woman, how nice would it be if we could take turns to f*ck her to death. What a pity for her big breasts, tsk. As he spoke, the evil man gestured with his hand. In this lawless world, Mayina was humiliated even after her death. But no one could help her. Yunjian had just made her way through the crowd when she saw Mira and Charlotte being hugged tightly by a few friends who were equally sobbing but rational. They were wailing in agony, but they could not avenge Mayina. When she clearly saw the scene just now, although her expression did not change in the slightest, her heart was fiercely touched. Yunjian pushed her way through the crowd and came to Doya and Charlotte. Looking at them, she asked faintly without saying anything, "Tell me what happened just now." The more Yunjian stayed silent, the more her heart did the opposite. She still remembered that when she was kidnapped by the organization in her previous life, she had a good friend. She couldn't remember the name of the little girl. She only remembered that every night when she was kidnapped, the little girl would hug her and comfort her not to be afraid. The little girl once said, "I'm here, don't be afraid. We'll be fine. We'll definitely be able to go home." In that world, the word home was harder than ascending to the heavens. Yunjian was not born a murderous maniac. She had been cowardly and scared before. Later on, the little girl died. Her limbs were cut off by the other girls in the organization and her heart was dug out. Chapter 1297. The little girl had died for Yunjian. Originally, the person who had died was Yunjian. Just like Mayina, Yunjian did not provoke anyone. However, when she was in the organization, she attracted jealousy because of her extreme talent. At that time, Yunjian was 7.5 years old. She was extremely talented, but everyone was jealous of her. Hence, the group of girls organized many other girls to frame Yunjian. They placed the item on Yunjian's bed and insisted that Yunjian had stolen it. They wanted to kill Yunjian. Yunjian's talent was extraordinary, but she could not withstand the attacks of so many girls. In order to save Yunjian, the little girl had all her limbs chopped off by the group of people. Her heart was dug out on the spot. The group of girls were children after all. When they caught the little girl and saw Yunjian's pained expression, they forgot that their initial goal was to kill Yunjian. They even thought that it would be more interesting to keep Yunjian alive and slowly torture her. Hence, they killed the little girl in front of Yunjian that day. Yunjian had lived 2 lives. She would never forget the last words the little girl shouted at her before she was killed: "You must live. You must live. I beg you, you must take me home." The little girl was older than Yunjian. She was already 9 years old at that time. Her life had come to an end before it even began. Yunjian and the little girl were very small at that time. Their only wish was to find their way home. It was also from then on that Yunjian began to change completely. She no longer needed friends. She was no longer weak and useless. She understood that she had to fight for everything herself. In the following year, Yunjian began to train crazily. She killed all kinds of children around her to force herself to live. In almost a short year, the children who were abducted into the assassin organization with her when they were 5 years old all lost their lives to her flying daggers. Children kept coming in from the organization. However, those who came in were living people. When they came out, they were cold corpses. It was already very fortunate that there were corpses left. 8 or 9 out of 10 people couldn't even find their bodies. After that, she debuted at the age of 12 and officially took over assassination missions as an agent. Everything that happened after that has already been mentioned. She began to turn into an out-and-out homicidal maniac, an emotionless killing machine. When his soul returned to reality, he saw Maina lying in a pool of blood and Myra's face. Yunjian's heart surged with an unknown anger. As she recalled Maina, Yunjian felt as if she had seen a little girl protecting her. Sensing Yunjian's murderous intent and sadness, Ce held her hand. Doya and Charlotte, who stood rooted to the ground, were already so mad that they couldn't speak. In the end, it was Charlotte who tried her best to calm her breathing towards Yunjian. However, she panted heavily as she spoke to Yunjian. She killed Na. Her man wanted to see Na's. She said that Na seduced him. So just now, she had people cut off Maina's breasts in front of everyone and humiliated her to death. But for some reason, Charlotte couldn't bring herself to say the rest of her words. Isn't she just a slut? So what if she killed her? Mira stood in the distance and said coldly. Then, Mira turned her gaze towards Yunjian. She was provoked by Yunjian's perfect face and skin, and her jealousy rose again. Mira looked at Yunjian. Just as she was about to say something, she saw Yunjian suddenly let go of Ce's hand and walk over. Myra's heart skipped a beat. Then, you can go die. Yunjian walked over very slowly and said this sentence faintly. Chapter 1298. From Yunjian's expression, she looked very calm. However, those who knew her knew that she was about to get angry. Hee, you want me to die? Mira suddenly sneered. Because of Myra's high status, the surrounding people immediately shouted in shock. Who's that little girl? She actually dared to challenge Miss Mira, the daughter of Europe's military family. I think this little girl will die a horrible death. TSK, just like that woman who overestimated herself, her breasts will be cut open while she's still alive. Why don't we go and negotiate with Miss Mira and ask her to let us have some fun before she kills this little girl? All the men standing around were saying disgusting obscenities. Before Mayina's death, not only did the people around her not help her, but one of them even kicked Mayina back to Mira when she desperately tried to escape. The crowd couldn't wait to watch a free and exciting show. This group of shameless people were still saying shameless things. However, just as they were saying this, the man who suggested to negotiate with Mira and sell Yunjian out for everyone to have some fun before Mira killed Yunjian suddenly had his head pressed down by a slender hand. After that hand pressed down on the man who was fantasizing about Yunjian, the other hand fiercely slapped the man's head, directly fixing his head and twisting his neck. Gotcha! The man died on the spot. The whole process didn't even take 3 seconds. And this person was killed by the owner of this pair of slender hands. The person who killed him was undoubtedly CE. CE's face darkened as he directly killed the man. The surrounding people were so frightened that they took 3 steps back. They weren't afraid of CE killing people, but of CE's superb skills. One more word and you'll go to hell. CE coldly spat out this sentence. Among this group of people, CE was one of the tallest. However, among this group of people, CE was without a doubt the most handsome one. Because they had never seen CE in this kind of underground gathering, the surrounding people thought that CE was weak. However, when CE walked over from afar and killed someone in 3 seconds, the people around them dared not utter a word of nonsense anymore. On the other side, when Mira saw that CE who was with Yunjian was so powerful, her arrogant and despotic attitude instantly collapsed. Seeing Yunjian walk towards her step by step, Mira was afraid. However, her years of arrogance made Mira unable to lower her head. She suddenly pointed at Yunjian and shouted at Yunjian, "You! Stop right there. I'm the young mistress of Europe's arms industry. My father's firearms influence covers the entire Europe. If you dare to attack me today, I'll make sure you die miserably." Mira was frightened by Yunjian's aura. Some people were born with a strong aura. Just their aura alone was enough to make people retreat 3 feet in fear. Yunjian was such a person. Yunjian didn't say anything. She continued to walk towards Mira. Her footsteps were very slow. Her feet didn't make any sound when she stepped on the ground. "You!" Seeing that Yunjian didn't retreat, Mira was stunned. However, Mira quickly reacted and threatened Yunjian again, "Let me tell you, my father is about to form an alliance with the Kosha mercenaries. If you dare to do anything to me today, all of you will die. I will pull out all of your tendons and peel off all of your skin." Mira's threat caused the surrounding people to cry out in surprise. Europe's arms industry tycoon was about to form an alliance with the Kosha mercenaries? Then, just as everyone was thinking of this, an ice-cold, enchanting female voice that sounded like the sound of nature reached everyone's ears. Chapter 1299. Yunjian's words were extremely high-profile this time. She did not use Kosha mercenaries but my Kosha mercenaries. The former could give people a feeling of yes or no, but the latter was an absolute tone. Her Kosha mercenaries was the only person who had the right to say that. Even the higher-ups of Kosha mercenaries, Elder Snake Lizard and Elder Tiger Leopard, did not have the right. The only person who had the right was the boss of Kosha mercenaries. At the same time, other than those around her, no one had ever seen her face. She was the #1 secret agent on the international secret agent ranking, Slaying God, who possessed exquisite assassination skills. Someone once said that if they could meet Slaying God, the #1 secret agent on the international secret agent ranking, one's life would not be in vain. Of course, these were the words of those who had come into contact with this Tao. An ordinary person might not even know about the secret agent ranking and assassin ranking, let alone the rest. It could be said that her father's alliance with Kosha mercenaries was Myra's biggest trump card. However, after she revealed her biggest trump card, Yunjian's reply was all she got. My Kosha mercenaries. You're the boss of Kosha mercenaries? No, how is that possible? Myra's expression changed drastically. Myra's face turned extremely pale in front of everyone's eyes. Everyone who was standing around was shocked. This little girl was. She was the boss of Kosha mercenaries. How was that possible? If she was the boss of Kosha mercenaries, then she was the #1 secret agent on the international secret agent ranking, slaying God. Slaying God. She was slaying God. Slaying God. You're slaying God. The people around her exclaimed in shock. Yunjian's words were like a ticking time bomb that exploded in an instant. Slaying God, what kind of existence was she? He was simply a legendary figure. Since slaying God's debut, many international businessmen and politicians had been quietly killed. There was even a saying in the underworld that went like this: those who were targeted by slaying God would feel as if the Grim Reaper had his hands on their necks. None of them had ever imagined that such a person would one day stand in front of them alive. Doya and Charlotte also recovered from the deep despair they felt when they saw Mayina's death. The two of them looked at Yunjian in disbelief after hearing what the crowd said. Slaying God. Doya and Charlotte were stunned. They were completely dumbfounded. Doya and Charlotte would never have dreamed that it was because they were kind enough to save Yunjian 2 days ago. Even if Yunjian didn't need it, just this one move was enough to change their fates completely. Heh, what slaying God? Look at how old you are. How dare you claim that the Kosha mercenaries are yours? Do you think others won't say such nonsense? Do you really think that people will believe that you're slaying God just because you spout nonsense? You. A mocking male voice came out of nowhere. He wanted to continue, but just as the words were about to leave his mouth, a small flying dagger was flung from where Yunjian was to the man who spoke. The flying dagger flew out of Yunjian's hand and entered the man's mouth the moment he opened it, piercing it. The man's mouth was pierced by the flying dagger and blood splattered everywhere. Although he was not dead, the man fainted from the sudden pain that he did not even have time to react to. Yunjian spoke to Qingyu, who had just rushed over and was standing behind her. Qingyu, kill that blabbermouth. The two words Qingyu made everyone's eyes widen. Chapter 1300. Qingyu's name was well known in the underworld as well because she was slaying God's follower and she was a master of poison. How skillful was Qingyu when it came to poisoning? For example, Qingyu could brush past a person within 3 meters. She did not even have to lift her hand and she could poison the person who brushed past her without anyone noticing. She could make people die without anyone knowing. That was Qingyu's ability. It was because of this terrifying ability that the people in the underworld feared Qingyu, second only to slaying God. This was because slaying God had killed her openly, while Qingyu could kill a person in such a way that the person would not even know why he died. This was the power of poison techniques. Slaying God was the one who made Qingyu famous. It could be said that other than snake, lizard and tiger, leopard from the Kosha mercenaries, Qingyu was one of the few who could follow slaying God and even see her face. Moreover, Qingyu was always by slaying God's side. She would not listen to anyone else other than slaying God. Therefore, when they heard Yunjian address the girl behind her as Qingyu, the people around them were shocked. After the shock, it was followed by endless terror and fear. Oh my God! Slaying God is her. It's really her. Someone could not help exclaiming. Just as he exclaimed, however, he covered his mouth in fright, afraid that Yunjian would hear what he said. Mira's legs were shaking from fear. Mira had never met anyone who was more powerful than her father, so she had always been fearless. Until just now, she was completely terrified. She still remembered her father telling her that she should not offend these two people in the underworld. If she did, they would annihilate the entire armaments family. One of them was Slaying God, who ranked first on the secret agent leaderboard, while the other was Enhan's leader. However, Mira had always thought that it was impossible for her to meet them. When she heard that Yunjian was Slaying God, she felt like her world had collapsed. At this moment, Yunjian had already walked up to Mira. She stretched out her hand and grabbed Mira's long hair. The group of bodyguards around Mira, including Mira's man, didn't even dare to let out a fart. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. They watched as Yunjian pulled Mira's long hair and pulled Mira's face in front of her. Chi! From afar, Qingyu poured out a bottle of dissolving water and turned the unconscious man into a puddle of blood before everyone's eyes. There was a horrifying sound of dissolving chemicals. Who else in the world could use a bottle of liquid to turn a person into a pool of blood? Qingyu's performance had proven her identity in front of everyone. She was Qingyu, Elder Qingyu of the Kosha mercenaries. At the same time, she was also known as the Poison Lady by outsiders. Ah! Ah! Yunjian dragged Mira to witness the man's body turning into a puddle of blood after Qingyu poured a bottle of liquid on him. Usually, Mira would not be frightened by such a gory scene, but it was different now. Now that she was being suppressed by Yunjian, the fact that Yunjian was showing her such a gory scene was, "Do you want to have a taste?" Yunjian forced Mira to watch the scene. She was already next to Mira, her lips close to Mira's ears as she whispered something that scared Mira out of her wits. No. No. Although Mira liked to kill, she was completely terrified when it came to the moment where she would be killed. Yunjian did not wait for Mira to finish. Her lips curled into a sinister smirk that was as eerie as the Grim Reaper from hell. She grabbed Mira's back with her right hand and flung her face and chest to the ground. Mira was flung to the ground directly, her nose smashing into the ground. Mira was terrified. Just as she was about to stand up, she felt a strong foot stepping on her back. Then, she was firmly pressed down, not allowing her to get up. Above her back, Yunjian's decisive voice rang, "Shuang, get me a saw. I'll cut off her limbs with my own hands today." His words were extremely calm, but the words he said were enough to frighten people. However, that was not everyone's focus. Shuang, one of the 4 leaders of the Enhan organization. Someone's eyes widened after hearing Yunjian's words. Shuang lowered his head at Yunjian and replied respectfully, "Yes." "Oh my God. The 4 leaders of the Enhan organization are here too." Someone's face turned pale with fright. Not long after Shuang left, a few female silhouettes came from afar. When the leader saw Mira under Yunjian's foot, he sprinted over and could not stop himself from calling out, "Mira." "Oh my God." Yunjian looked up and saw Hina, Maggie and the rest who she met in the hot spring running over. The one who shouted was the arrogant Hina. When Yunjian entered a hot spring, Hina sent Maggie to chase her away and even wanted to kill her. Now that she saw Hina and Maggie, Yunjian narrowed her eyes. Not long after, Hina, Maggie and the rest stood in front of Yunjian. Hina saw Yunjian stepping on Mira, and her expression changed drastically. She did not know what was going on, so when she saw Yunjian's action, she scolded Yunjian directly. "Then we can give you a good death. Otherwise, we'll kill you." Maggie and the others looked at Yunjian with hatred, as if they couldn't wait to tear Yunjian into pieces. Maggie even thought in her heart that she shouldn't have let Yunjian go just because she owed Doya a favor. Seeing this, Doya and Charlotte clenched their fists tightly. At this moment, a mellow male voice was heard. Before everyone could react, the owner of the mellow male voice was already standing beside Yunjian. Ce looked at Shuang, who just came back with the saw, and stood beside him silently. He said to Shuang in front of everyone with a slight anger. Chapter 1302. Ce couldn't tolerate having sand in his eyes. The reason why Enhun was able to achieve what it had today was due to the strict implementation of Enhun's own rules. Normally, Ce could joke around with the 4 leaders of the Enhun organization, but when it came to critical moments, he wouldn't allow a single mistake to happen. Moreover, the Enhun organization had its own rules. Everyone in the organization wasn't allowed to be related. The meaning of this rule was that anyone who belonged to the Enhun organization wasn't allowed to use the name of the organization to cause trouble. It meant that no outsiders were allowed to use the words "I know someone from the Enhun organization" to swagger around in the circle. It was obvious that the man Hina mentioned was from the Enhun organization, and she was using this to her advantage. This was something Ce couldn't tolerate. The members of Enhun would definitely be protected by the organization. However, if they were to flaunt their prowess on the international stage just because they were slightly related to Enhun, they were basically using Enhun's name to swindle people everywhere. Ce had severely suppressed this a long time ago. This was something he couldn't tolerate. Yes, young master. Shuang was sweating for Lin Wei. Ce rarely spoke with anger. In fact, Shuang knew that the anger in Ce's tone this time was because someone was targeting Yunjian in the name of Enhun Group. That was why Ce was so angry. The only person who could make Ce emotional was Yunjian. If this matter didn't involve Yunjian, even if the Enhun organization was destroyed, Shuang reckoned that Ce's expression wouldn't change at all. Thus, when comparing the Enhun organization to Yunjian, Shuang reckoned that in Ce's heart, even if there were hundreds of billions of Enhun organization, they wouldn't be able to compare to Yunjian. Thinking of this, Shuang deepened his thoughts of going to Yunjian to flatter her. He felt that he needed to plan for Mo Senya to go with him to flatter Yunjian. Thinking of this, Shuang dialed Ling Wei's communicator and ran to the side to talk. He left behind a group of dumbfounded people. The people standing around had been there since Yunjian's identity as slaying god was exposed. They had witnessed the entire process. Hina, Maggie, and the others were all aware of their performance, and they all thought that Hina, Maggie, and the others were doomed. However, no one expected the man standing next to slaying god to order Shuang, one of the 4 leaders of Enhun, in such a tone. And most importantly, Shuang was actually obedient. Then, this meant that, could it be that this young man, he's the leader of Enhun? Someone cried out in astonishment, which struck everyone's hearts in an instant. Everyone's faces turned pale. Hearing what Ce said, the people around them felt the urge to flee as quickly as possible. However, due to fear, they were rooted to the ground like nails. There was a rumor that anyone who met Enhun's leader would be killed by the organization. Even if they managed to escape, they would be hunted down by Enhun. In other words, they would die without a doubt. Hina, Maggie, and the others who were still acting all high and mighty earlier, fell apart in an instant. Especially Hina, who had just boasted that her man was from Enhun. In the end, Yunjian's man was the leader of Enhun who had never shown his face. This couldn't be real, right? A Kosha mercenaries boss and Enhun's leader. They're a perfect match. I'm afraid there's no one else in this world who's more compatible than them. Just as Hina was in disbelief, a voice from the side sent her to the bottom of the valley. The Kosha mercenaries boss. Slaying God. Slaying God, the #1 secret agent in the international ranking. Chapter 1303. Yun Jian. It was slaying God. Hina's expression changed drastically at the sudden realization. She was terrified. Had she offended Hun's leader and the boss of Kosha mercenaries just to please Mira? Just as she was thinking about it, Yun Jian's voice was heard. Shuang, have you brought the saw? It's here. Shuang obeyed. He quickly brought the saw in his hand to Yun Jian and passed it to her. The saw was used by farmers to chop down trees. It was only a matter of time before it could be used to cut off a person's leg. Of course, if one were to use this saw to cut off a person's leg without anesthetics, it would be a fate worse than death. Yun Jian took the saw and placed it gently on Myra's fair-skinned legs under her shorts. She gently slid down, and the sharp saw cut Myra's fair and smooth thigh, causing blood to gush out. No! No! Sob sob. Mira was trembling in fear. However, Yun Jian stepped on her back so hard that she could not move at all. Yun Jian bent down and patted Myra's face gently in front of everyone. Then, her soft voice came from above Mira. This saw is quite sharp. It's perfect for sawing off your legs and hands. I'll cut off your legs first, then your hands, and then dig out your heart. Let's do it slowly. Don't rush, okay? Yun Jian sounded like she was talking to herself, but Mira was scared out of her wits when she heard it. No. I was wrong. I shouldn't have killed that woman. I'll do whatever you want me to. How about? I'll ask my father to stop allying with your Kosha mercenaries as long as you don't kill me. Don't kill me. It was Myra's first time experiencing the fear of death. She could clearly feel Mayina's struggle before she died. However, the main character this time was Mira herself. Before Mira could finish her sentence, Yun Jian had already raised the saw and slashed it on Myra's thigh. Ah! Mira almost fainted from the sudden pain. However, Yun Jian held Myra's philtrum tightly to prevent her from passing out. At this moment, Mira would rather pass out. Yun Jian. Just as Yun Jian was about to cut off Myra's leg with the saw, a weak voice was heard. Yun Jian turned and saw Doya looking at her with a pale face. Yun Jian stopped what she was doing and turned to look at Doya. However, Doya paused. Then, she mustered up her courage and said to Yun Jian, she killed Na. I want to avenge Na. I'll kill Mira. Even after knowing Yun Jian's identity, Doya could still look at her openly. Although she was slightly fearful, she was braver than most of the men here since she stood out after knowing Yun Jian's identity. Yes, we'll kill Mira. Charlotte clenched her fists tightly. Her eyes were red, but she resisted the urge to cry out loud. She looked at Yun Jian like Doya. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes when she heard the voices. She looked at Doya and Charlotte's enthusiasm. She liked it very much. Chapter 1304. After Yun Jian finished speaking, she looked down at Mira who was under her feet. Mira didn't faint because Yun Jian had pinched her philtrum. All Yun Jian wanted was for Mira to be in so much pain that she wished she was dead. With a gentle flick of her hand, she swung the saw at Doya and Charlotte without even lifting her head to look at the pair. Doya reached out and caught the saw that Yun Jian had tossed over. She grabbed the saw and rushed towards Mira with red eyes. Doya grabbed the saw and rushed to Mira, shouting, "Go to hell." In the next second, Doya grabbed the saw and slashed at Myra's thigh. With a few forceful slashes, one of Myra's thighs was cut off. The leg was completely separated from Myra's body. Mira instantly howled in pain because Yunjian had pinched Myra's philtrum. Mira couldn't resist at all. Her screams pierced through the sky, but no one cared. After Doya chopped off one of Myra's legs, she suddenly remembered that Myina was humiliated to death by Mira. When Myina's chest was cut open, the people around her didn't have any sympathy. The men even whistled as they watched happily. Doya raised the saw and was about to chop off Myra's other leg when Charlotte frantically snatched the saw away. After Myra's arms and legs were chopped off, she couldn't wake up even after pinching her philtrum. She completely fainted. Yunjian stood aside and watched as Doya and Charlotte sawed off Myra's limbs and chopped her into pieces. It was only when Mira breathed her last that Doya and Charlotte stood before Yunjian with their hands clasped. Myra's death could at most avenge Myina, but Myina was dead. Myra's death could not bring Myina back to life. Yunjian lowered her eyes. She didn't turn around. Ce was standing behind Yunjian. He reached out and pulled Yunjian into his embrace, then ordered Shuang, "Kill everyone here." That didn't include Doya and Charlotte. Shuang naturally knew what was going on. "What? You actually want to kill us? Why?" When some people heard Ce's words, their expressions changed drastically, and they all began to turn and flee frantically. With Shui Ying's ability, even if everyone present worked together, they still wouldn't be a match for him. Moreover, anyone who was targeted by the leader of An Hun would definitely die. Encountering such a situation, it was impossible for them not to run. Every one of them ran faster than anyone else. When Qingyu saw this, she helped Shuang to kill all those who were trying to escape. The one thing Hina regretted the most before she died was that she didn't care about anything and rushed to help Mira. But in the end, she got herself killed. She regretted provoking Yunjian. This devil. There were corpses everywhere, but Yunjian and Ce's expressions didn't change at all. To Yunjian and Ce, dead people were something they were used to. This was how it was in this circle. If you weren't strong, you deserved to die. It was because Yunjian and Ce were strong that those people deserved to die. Yunjian was nestled in Ce's embrace. Ce hugged her from behind and lowered his head to sniff the faint fragrance on her body. Yunjian extended a hand and placed it in front of Doya and Charlotte. She pursed her lips and said after a while, "Are the two of you willing to join the Kosha mercenaries?" She was very satisfied with Doya and Charlotte's performance just now. If she taught them well, they would definitely become elites and talents in the underworld. Chapter 1305. Yunjian's eyes flashed with determination. Both Doya and Charlotte were stunned. They did not expect Yunjian to say that. "Are you two willing to join the Kosha mercenaries?" Doya and Charlotte would never dream of such a good thing. They would never dream of Yunjian inviting them to join the Kosha mercenaries just because they had saved the Kosha mercenaries' boss. Doya and Charlotte knew very well that they had to fight for their own success. They had never thought that they would dream of Yunjian repaying them for saving Yunjian. Hence, when they heard Yunjian's words, Doya and Charlotte were stunned. If it were anyone else, they would definitely nod their head and join first before thinking about anything else. However, Doya and Charlotte did not do that. Doya lowered her head and looked at the dust on the ground. She was about to speak when she heard a voice. Just as she was about to say something, Yunjian's voice came again. "Don't worry. I've never invited useless people to join the Kosha mercenaries. I'm inviting you to join the Kosha mercenaries because you have the ability to grow. As for me, I'm just a talent scout. This was what Doya and Charlotte were worried about. They were different from others. They wanted to rely on their own ability to survive in this world. They did not want to rely on their relatives, friends, or lovers to flaunt their prowess everywhere like Mira or Hina. They wanted to become stronger. Just like Yunjian, who did not rely on anyone. All right. I agree. Doya grinned at Yunjian all of a sudden. I agree too. Charlotte clenched her fists. They had to become strong so that they would not be bullied. So that they would not be like before when they could only watch helplessly as Mira killed Maina. Then, I welcome you all to join us. Yunjian narrowed her eyes and smiled, a sharp luster flashing in her eyes. Yunjian only invited Doya and Charlotte to join. As for the others, she did not care. She, Yunjian, did not invite the weak. Other friends like Doya and Charlotte were not qualified to do so. Anyone that Yunjian invited would definitely be a future powerhouse that she recognized. She wouldn't accept trash. The flower bed where Yunjian and the others were was quite a distance away from the venue of the tea party. At this moment, in the dance hall of the tea party, the snake lizard was already here. She was standing in the middle of the hall with her arms crossed. Many people recognized Snake Lizard's identity and came forward to express their goodwill. However, Snake Lizard did not pay any attention to him. She still maintained her cold and aloof appearance. You, Elder Snake Lizard, greetings. I'm Europe's arms tycoon, Miro. We've met before. Last time, I proposed an alliance with the Kosha mercenaries. It should be about time, right? The man who called himself Miro bowed in front of Snake Lizard and spoke to her respectfully. Miro was Myra's father and was also a Europe's arms tycoon. I forgot. Snake Lizard stood there with her arms crossed. She did not even pay attention to Miro. Hearing that, Miro's face was immediately filled with awkwardness. However, he continued to move forward. However, at this moment, the door suddenly opened. A beautiful teenage girl and a handsome man walked in from outside the door. A handsome man followed behind them. The handsome man held a gunny sack in one hand and threw it in front of everyone. The contents of the gunny sack rolled out. It was a body without limbs. The body was stiff but the face was intact. It was obvious who this person was. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.